Chapter 737. At this moment, Sun Qingchen is leading Lu Xinan and the rest to leave from the hotel's side door and run towards the parking lot. Subhuti was like a large light bulb, and she was very reliable. The parking lot is just in front. Let's go. Sun Qingchen used a suppressed submachine gun to deal with two soldiers and stood at the door and waved at Lu Xinan and the rest. Lu Xinan and the rest immediately followed. Yin Tian is carrying Li Fan. Although she is a girl, because she is a martial artist, it is not strenuous for her to carry Li Fan. Furthermore, Yin Tian seems to be a bit happy to be able to help her big brother Li Fan. Just when they are about to pass through a small path in the back garden and enter the parking lot, Murong Ying suddenly turns around and raises the flying lion shield in her hand. Dang! A sniper rifle bullet hit the shield and embedded itself in it. Be careful, it's a sniper. They found us. Sun Qingchen immediately hides behind the corner. The rest of them also shrink behind the wall at the side and do not dare to show their heads. Yin Tian, can you find the opponent's position? Lu Xinan subconsciously asked. Can't find. Although Yin Tian is a knife-throwing expert, she is clearly a bit weak in this aspect. There are about two positions. The Devil Incarnate is a sniper expert. He pulls open the bolt of his 38 style rifle and checks the bullet inside. One more shot and it will be his death. Just as he finished speaking, the opponent fired another shot. It seems like he wants to kill Li Fan. Murong Ying raises her shield again and blocks this bullet. The Devil Incarnate immediately stands up, raises his 38 style rifle and fires a shot at the roof of a building far away. Bang! A gunshot is heard as a man's figure falls from the roof. But at the same time, their position is also exposed. Quickly leave this place. Sun Qingchen's expression was ugly. Although he killed the enemy's sniper, the gunshot had undoubtedly attracted the troops over. Just as Sun Qingchen had expected, when the storm mercenaries heard the gunshots, they immediately gave up on attacking Subhuti. 2 of the 3 mecha came over, followed by 10 fully armed mercenaries. Let's go! Sun Qingchen took out 2 submachine guns and shot at the government troops that were rushing over while bringing Lu Xinan and the rest to the parking lot. Sun Qingchen's spear art is superb. When an enemy just revealed his head, he killed him with a single shot. However, more enemies were rushing over. The Devil Incarnate took out a Gatling gun from behind his back and held it in his hand. He moved slowly while shooting, causing bullets to rain down on the enemies. Many enemies were suppressed to the point of shrinking their heads, not daring to step forward. Even if there were 2 mechas, they wouldn't dare to take the Gatling gun's bullets head-on. However, at that moment, the tank turned its barrel and aimed at the direction of the corridor. Just 1 shell would be enough to kill everyone who was heading to the parking lot. Subhuti was shocked. He wanted to rush back, but it was too late. The tank had already fired. Boom! A cannonball flew out, exploding into raging flames. Murong Ying raised her shield and stood in front of them. Her defense is not as strong as Subhuti. After this shell landed, many cracks appeared on Murong Ying's shield and it would shatter at any moment. 1 more shell and Murong Ying probably wouldn't be able to withstand it and would be blasted into pieces. However, at this moment, Li Fan suddenly woke up. He stood up and gave himself a big stretch. So noisy! Li Fan said, Why is it so noisy? Big brother, you finally woke up. Quickly help! Lu Xinan shouted, and the tank fired another shot. Li Fan's martial artist's mental state immediately flared up. He immediately turned his head and pointed to the distance. Boom! The shell exploded in the air, and a black longsword stabbed into the tank's barrel, splitting the tank's barrel into 2. Why is it these guys again? Li Fan looked at the government troops and the storm mercenaries mixed among them. Even the storm mercenaries are here? Are they looking for me? No, they probably thought that we were the resistance army. Lu Xinan whispered into Li Fan's ear, These storm mercenaries were probably hired by the government to catch us all in one fell swoop. Interesting. Li Fan smiled, I will play with them. With that, Li Fan let Murong Ying continue to guard this side while he jumped towards the government troops. The government troops' lineup is huge, but the storm mercenaries are the only ones who are contributing. The commander was alarmed when he saw Li Fan. He ordered everyone to focus fire on Li Fan. But Li Fan did a swallow 3 times in the air, turning back and forth 3 times in the air, dodging those bullets. Li Fan jumped into the group of mercenaries. He raised his hand and slapped a mercenary. The mercenary's upper body directly exploded, turning into meat paste as he was blasted into dregs. Li Fan kicked another soldier's head. His head was sent flying. Blood spurted out of his body as he knelt on the ground. A mercenary aimed his gun at Li Fan. Li Fan crushed the gun barrel with one hand and used his other hand to pierce through the man's head. He then flung the corpse to the side. Li Fan charged into the crowd. His combat power was extremely strong. He was like a demon, destroying everything in his path. None of the mercenaries could withstand a single blow from him. 2 minutes later, a pile of corpses lay beside Li Fan. He was completely fine. 3 mechas surrounded him and aimed their 6-barreled machine guns at Li Fan. They rotated and fired at the same time. Bullets rained down. Li Fan's figure was torn apart, but it was only his afterimage. The real Li Fan was standing on top of a mecha. Li Fan raised his leg and kicked the mecha's cockpit. The cockpit was directly smashed. The pilot inside was turned into flesh and blood, splattering all over the cockpit. The other 2 mechas raised their machine guns and aimed at Li Fan. However, Li Fan flipped and landed on top of one of the mechas. He pulled up the 2 arms and aimed the guns at the other mecha. 2. Bullets sprayed out and turned the cockpit of the other mecha into a sieve. The pilot inside was dead. There was only 1 mecha left. Li Fan stretched out his hand and the black sword that was stabbed into the tank flew back into his palm. He shook it and it turned into a black spear. The pilot sat in the cockpit and pulled out his gun, preparing to shoot at Li Fan. However, Li Fan's spear was faster. It directly broke through the cockpit's glass and pierced the pilot's forehead. The pilot was nailed to death in the mecha. Almost in the blink of an eye, all the storm mercenaries were killed by Li Fan. The remaining government soldiers were scared out of their wits. Chapter 738. Li Fan was woken up by the commotion. Now that he has vented his anger, he feels much better. Don't be afraid. He is alone. Open fire together and kill him. Kill him. Seeing that the mercenaries are all dead, the commander panicked. Where did the resistance army find such an expert? Is he a human? He should be a devil. All the government soldiers raise their guns and aim at Li Fan and start shooting again. Bullets keep shooting at Li Fan, chasing after Li Fan's figure. Li Fan grabs his black spear and jumps into the crowd of government soldiers. He does not care about the bullets. As long as he sneaks into the crowd of government soldiers, they will not dare to open fire. As he kills his way into the crowd, Li Fan is like a wolf that has entered a flock of sheep. He holds his black spear and shoots 1 soldier at a time, piercing through the hearts of the surrounding government soldiers. From time to time, Li Fan sweeps with his spear and cleaves a row of soldiers in front of him into 2. Their bodies are cleaved into 2, and their intestines and organs fly everywhere, scaring the soldiers out of their wits. After a few moves, the government soldiers no longer have any courage. Their attacks are completely ineffective, and this Chinese has already taken the lives of countless of their comrades. He is clearly a reaper on the battlefield. To deal with such an enemy, they can only use airplanes to bomb them. Retreat, retreat. The commander can tell that the situation is bad. This enemy is too strong. His army is not on the same level as him. It is impossible to deal with him without an air strike force. Actually, even without the commander giving the order to retreat, these soldiers have already lost the courage to fight. All of them run very fast as if they wish they had 2 wheels on their legs. A bunch of cowards. Li Fan looks at the fleeing soldiers and crosses his arms as he sneers. With just these people, not to mention himself, even if Sun Qingchen, Devil Incarnate, and the rest were to join a team, they can launch an elite assault on them and beat them up. Li Fan slightly tilts his head and ponders. Do you want me to take over this island? Come on, you don't have time to manage it. Lu Xinan rolled her eyes at Li Fan. If you want to be the owner of an island, find an island in the high seas, buy it, and do whatever we want. Okay, I hope to buy a small island where I can sleep peacefully. As Li Fan was speaking, the demon incarnate and Sun Qingshan walked over. Boss, I suggest we take this island. Sun Qingshan gave a suggestion. When I was bored yesterday, I contacted the resistance army on this island. It's a group of Northeasterners. They can cooperate with us. Boss, there's still some time before Murong's birthday. We can still do something. The devil's incarnation was also looking forward to it. This island is not bad. Why give it to the Philippines for nothing? Why not keep it for ourselves? I know a group of desperados who seem to have nothing better to do every day. Let them land on the island, set up camp here, and conquer the sky. You guys, wait a minute. Needless to say, the suggestion of these two really moved Li Fan. But with just their people, they might be able to conquer an island, but they might not be able to defend it. Li Fan thought about it and felt that he really needed a strong backing. Although this island is a bit far from City A, it's still quite convenient by sea. If he can't survive in China in the future, he would have a suitable retreat route. Attack and occupy this place? Li Fan felt that it was somewhat feasible. He took out his phone and called Liao Wushuang. What's the matter? Liao Wushuang went straight to the point and asked, You've been in Storm for so long. Do you know any other mercenaries? I need to hire some people to help me do something. Storm's people definitely won't do, but I do know a small mercenary group. They have a good relationship with me. Do you need them? Sure, let's do it. Li Fan nodded. He was going to place the Special Abilities Bureau's ship here. This island was much safer than Huaxia. China has no time to care about this small island in the Spratly Islands, and it's impossible for that dragon to set up a search network here. It's indeed a good choice. Okay, I'll take them there personally. What mission do they need to do? Help me conquer an island. I'm not kidding. I'll send you the coordinates. Tell them to come quickly. Li Fan put down Liao Wushuang's phone and brought it to Ling Tian. Prodigy Security Company still has some newly trained security guards. They can be armed and sent directly to the island. They can be regarded as his personal guards. This island must have a core team belonging to him. Otherwise, if he really fosters a regime in the future, he will be screwed if he has no own people to use. Who wants to be king here? Li Fan asked around, but the others shook their heads. Although it's quite interesting to conquer an island. But no one wanted to be a king. With Li Fan around, who would dare to call themselves king? There has to be someone on the island to manage it. Li Fan couldn't help but smile bitterly. If you guys don't want to do it, then who will do it? You can do it yourself. Lu Xinan said. Don't make trouble. I still have to be busy with China's affairs and go to school. How can I be a king here? Li Fan voiced out his thoughts. This place is at most my big back. I need someone to help me take care of it. By Lin Lu. Sun Qingshan gave Li Fan a good suggestion. He is more suitable to manage here. That's right. Li Fan couldn't help but nod. Little Four Eyes is meticulous. It's best to let him help me manage here. You talk so much as if the island has already been conquered. Lu Xinan rolled her eyes. With Liao Wushuang and Bai Lin Luo helping me, there will be no problem. Li Fan smiled. We can leave normally. 3 days later, this island will have a new owner. Lu Xinan looked at Li Fan. Do you want me to leave the Scarlet Dragon Archer Cavalry to you? No need. These are your personal guards. Keep them for your own use. Li Fan waved his hand. Believe me, the regime of this island is ours. Beauty, you stay on this island and help Bai Lin Luo. Amit Ba, very good. This poor monk will have a good discussion about Buddhism with the female benefactors on this island. Li Fan was speechless. Wait until Bai Lin Luo consolidates the regime, then come back. All right. After arranging everything, Li Fan left the airport in his private jet. A day after he left, Bai Lin Luo boarded the Special Abilities Bureau's tripod ship and docked at the island's dock. When Bai Lin Luo came down, Beauty was already standing on the dock, putting his palms together and performing a Buddhist ritual. Amit Ba, this poor monk has been waiting for a long time. Chapter 739. Bai Lin Luo was accompanied by Susu. As soon as the two arrived on the island, Susu couldn't help but be happy. The air here is so good. Whether it was the capital or the northern city of a city, the haze and pollution were relatively serious. But in this city on the island, the pollution was almost zero, and every breath of the air was sweet. Amit ba, I feel like I'm at home here. Pewdie's words made Bai Lin Luo roll his eyes. Fuck, I still have to conquer this place myself. Xiaohu. Bai Lin Luo ordered. Lu Xiaohu leaped from the ship, turned around in the air, and landed next to Bai Lin Luo with ease. Chief, what can I do for you? Lu Xiaohu's strength had obviously improved a lot compared to the last time he met Li Fan. Li Fan had already infused him with the strength of 3 tigers, and he was at the stage of perfection. Now, he relied on his own cultivation to reach the next level of strength. Even Li Fan would be envious of Lu Xiaohu's speed of growth. Get ready to get to work. In the Special Abilities Bureau, the only effective combatants were himself and Lu Xiaohu. Susu was a trump card against men, and it was a conditional attack. There were 2 women standing beside Lu Xiaohu. One was Wang Xiaoyuan in a silver-white lion armor, and the other was the archer Lu Xinan in a brown armor. The 2 of them, one on the offense and the other on the defense, were just enough to escort Bai Lin Luo. I have a good understanding of the situation on the island. After Bai Lin Luo landed on the island, he began to lay out the plan. At this time, a few more ships gradually approached the dock. One of them belonged to Phenom, a medium-sized passenger ship that Lu Xinan had bought with her own money. 20 phenomenal security guards with loaded guns alighted from the ship, each of them armed to the nines. In order to occupy this island, Li Fan and Lu Xinan had put in a lot of effort. Every Beyonder security guard wore a nano-battle suit developed by the United States. Not only did it have strong defense, but it could also support the user's body's abilities. All the Beyonder security guards were also wearing multifunctional glasses, strengthening their vision and information analysis abilities, increasing their reconnaissance abilities significantly. Lu Xinan specially equipped them with the latest M4A1 and Colt pistols. In addition, tactical daggers and electronic grenades were naturally indispensable. Seeing such a team walk down, Bai Lin Luo felt a little relieved. At this time, another ship docked. The ship had a wolf's head logo on it. Then, a group of mercenaries with a wolf's head logo on their shoulders arrived. There were 15 of them in total. The leader of the group was a man with a white ponytail and a wolf skin hat. He looked very wild. He glanced at Bai Lin Luo, took out his phone, and looked at the photo again. Are you Bai Lin Luo? This guy was originally a foreigner, and now he was speaking English, so he opened his mouth and asked. Bai Lin Luo nodded. For you. Battle Wolf Mercenary Group, Captain Max. This guy was very capable. You can call me White Wolf. Is this the future commanding officer? Next to him was a sexy and enchanting silver-haired beauty. She was wearing a black wolf head military uniform and carrying an SVD on her back. This SVD was well maintained, and it was obvious that this silver-haired beauty was a gun lover. This was the deputy captain of the Battle Wolf Mercenary Group, Eva. To actually work with such a person, it's really depressing. Why did Liao Chanxian introduce such a job to us? Eva complained. It doesn't matter. No matter what kind of mission it is, we, Battle Wolf, can complete it. Next to him was a big blonde man with a resolute face. Everyone, this island will be ours from now on. Bai Lin Luo immediately threw out the bait to tempt these mercenaries. Even the mercenaries recommended by Liao Wushuang were the same. They would not get up early if there were no benefits. If there were no suitable benefits, they would not come out and risk their lives. It's not just yours, right? Just as Bai Lin Luo's voice fell, a man in a suit and leather shoes walked out of a van beside him. Although he was wearing a suit, he had a heroic aura. The president of the resistance army? Bai Lin Luo had already checked the information and could tell the man's identity with a glance. This president of the resistance army was about 40 years old. He was full of heroic spirit and did not have a trace of decadence. When Bai Lin Luo saw him, his heart was slightly worried. The Battle Wolf Mercenary Group was easy to deal with. They could be bought with money. As long as they were given benefits, they would be able to be used. However, this president of the resistance army was different. He was a person with great ambitions. Perhaps, after this island was taken from the hands of the government army, he would be the biggest threat. Mr. President, before the government army is defeated, everything is still empty talk. However, Bai Lin Luo was also an expert in negotiation. He immediately said, "On behalf of Phenomenal Corporation, I welcome everyone to discuss cooperation." Bai Lin Luo was Li Fan's full representative, so his words carried a bit of domineeringness. These people were not simple people. They were all dragons and phoenixes among men. If he wanted to suppress them, he must have a domineering aura. "This is not the place to talk," the president said with a smile. "I have already prepared a banquet for everyone. We await your arrival. As long as we have money, we have no problem." The leader of the Battle Wolf mercenary group, Max, said very honestly. "Let's talk first." Bai Lin Luo did not say anything else. He decided to find a place to talk first. Glass bar. There were not many entertainment facilities on the island. The bar could be considered as one, but it was a bit hidden. This glass bar was built in the basement of a glass factory. There were quite a few customers inside, and they all looked like people from the resistance army. A few members of the resistance army were drinking here. When they saw Bai Lin Luo and the others coming in, they all looked at them. When the president came in, the resistance army saluted him in unison. "It seems like this is your place." Bai Lin Luo only brought Wang Xiaoyuan with him. The others were waiting outside. Even Lu Shinan from Sagittarius constellation stood at the door, holding a bow and arrow, guarding for Bai Lin Luo and the others. "Don't worry, they are only responsible for our safety." The president smiled. "We are on the same side, right?" Bai Lin Luo said thoughtfully and looked at the president a few more times. "This president, I don't know what he is planning. Everyone, please come in." The president invited Bai Lin Luo and the others into a simple and crude VIP room. There were only 3 seats in the room. Bai Lin Luo, the president, and the leader of the Battle Wolf mercenary group, Max, all sat down. Wang Xiaoyuan stood beside Bai Lin Luo, Eva stood beside Max, and a bodyguard dressed in black stood beside the president. Although this place is a little shabby, at least we can have an open and honest discussion. The president looked at Bai Lin Luo and the others. "I want to ask Mr. Bai, what do you want from this island?" Chapter 740. The president looked like he was very shrewd, but he asked a question straight to the point. "Since you asked, then I'll say it directly." Bai Lin Luo did not back down. "I want the control of this island. From now on, this island will belong to Li. Director Bai, isn't your appetite a little too big?" The president crossed his arms in front of him and asked, "Isn't it not good?" "President, it's like this." Bai Lin Luo smiled. "You should have seen our current armaments. In addition to us, there is also the Battle Wolves mercenary group. They were all hired by us. Also, our boss destroyed a government army by himself. You should know this kind of combat power. Without us, you and your resistance army will never win against the government army supported by the Philippines." The president looked at Bai Lin Luo a few more times. Although he was a little unconvinced, he had to admit that what Bai Lin Luo said was right. The current situation was just that awkward. The resistance army was so poor that they couldn't get any good equipment at all. But they were good at guerrilla warfare, but it was not painful. Other than giving the government army a headache, they did not have much influence. The president felt that it would not be long before the resistance army ran out of ammunition and food. "Cooperate with us. After we get the power, we will give you the authority of the resistance army guards." Bai Lin Luo already started to promise. A good city will always need police. Although you can't be the president, you can be the garrison commander. Only the garrison commander? The president seemed to be hoping for more. "It's already very good. You're basically getting it for free." Bai Lin Luo did not have the slightest intention of giving in. "If you don't like it, you don't have to participate in our plan. Without your help, although it will take more time, we will still be able to deal with the government army." The reason why they wanted to bring the resistance army natives was Sun Qingshan's suggestion. Bai Lin Luo also felt that it was feasible. The resistance army was the original government and still had some prestige on the island. With their help, he would at least be able to stand on his feet in terms of morality. Even if they changed the government, Bai Lin Luo did not want the resistance army to continue to harass them. First, they needed to take over the government. Then they needed stability, harmony, and recuperation. You can choose for yourself. Bai Lin Luo said, whether you participate or not, within 3 days, we will make the current government step down. The president believed that Bai Lin Luo was not bragging. He had the ability. As long as the boss behind him appeared, he could change the government by himself. That man was a little scary. I have no objections. The president had no reason to refuse, nor did he have the power to refuse. He needed Bai Lin Luo. Otherwise, they would forever be hated by everyone on this island. What about us? The leader of the battle wolves, Max, would ask questions when it was time to fight for his own interests. I'll give you command of a garrison, Bai Lin Luo said without any hesitation. This was also something that he and Liao Wushuang had agreed on before. You can expand your army to a maximum of 1 regiment. After that, you will have the right to command this army. I only need you to cooperate with me personally. At the same time, you must protect the safety of this island when needed. Sure. For a mercenary group, this was already a very good benefit. Max could see that Bai Lin Luo was sincerely discussing business with them. The job that Liao Qianqian introduced to him seemed to be quite good. Since none of us have any objections, let's sign this contract. Bai Lin Luo was well prepared. He placed the contract that he had already prepared on the table. The president and Max looked at it. There was basically no problem. Sign your names and we will be comrades from now on. Bai Lin Luo continued to lead them. Everyone's interests are the same. After the president and Max signed the contract, Bai Lin Luo heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, the first step was completed. At this time, the waiter who had been standing beside them and pouring water for them suddenly opened his lapel, pulled out 2 submachine guns, and aimed at Bai Lin Luo. The president was shocked. There was actually an undercover agent on his side? Eva had already pulled out a pistol in an instant and aimed at the opponent's head. But the person on the other side seemed to be well trained, and he was about to pull the trigger. At this time, Wang Xiaoyuan suddenly made her move. She directly threw out the round shield in her left hand, and the shield immediately cut off the opponent's head, causing blood to spurt out. The round shield was embedded in the wall at the back, and with blood, it was embedded there. Wang Xiaoyuan stood in front, blocking the blood for Bai Lin Luo. The other 2 were not so lucky, and their faces were splashed with blood. Mr. President, it seems that your resistance army is not a piece of iron. Bai Lin Luo's words were filled with ridicule. The president did not know what to say, so he asked the bodyguard in black to take out a handkerchief to wipe his face. This wave of strength slapping his face, it was too painful. It seems that the enemy is not easy to deal with. Max also wiped his face clean, and they actually obtained information about our gathering. They are somewhat powerful. My mistake, my mistake. The president's face was gloomy. His own territory was actually sneak attacked. If it wasn't for the strength of Bai Lin Luo's bodyguard, he would have already been killed. If my guess is correct, the government forces should have already surrounded this place. Bai Lin Luo turned the gears in his brain. Let's go out and take a look. Sure, let's go out and take a look. The president knew that since Bai Lin Luo dared to say this, he must be prepared. Max didn't object, and the 3 of them, accompanied by their subordinates, came to the glass factory and looked outside. Many military vehicles were blocked here, and the secretary of the government forces personally rushed over to command the battle here on behalf of the president. The secretary was a senior agent sent by the Philippines, specifically to assist the new president in ruling this island country. There were 2 oil and gas fields near this island country, which was the reason why the Philippines had been secretly causing trouble. Once the regime was stable, they could naturally develop these 2 oil and gas fields. At that time, the oil and gas would be directly transported to the Philippines and become their resource. The people inside, listen up. The secretary held a loudspeaker and began to persuade them to surrender. You have been surrounded by the Third Army. Surrender immediately, or you will be killed on the spot. Starting the political propaganda. Bai Lin Luo sat on a chair on the second floor and pointed at the secretary standing behind the explosion-proof shield. Shoot his loudspeaker, it's annoying to listen to. Max and the president both thought, what kind of material is this explosion-proof shield made of? Even a sniper rifle can't penetrate this shield. Does this Bai Lin Luo like to boast too much? Chapter 741. The secretary hid behind the explosion-proof shield with a smile on his face. Meanwhile, Lu Xinnan from the Sagittarius constellation had already drawn her bow and aimed at the secretary. This explosion-proof shield uses 30 mm bulletproof glass. Even my SVD can only leave a mark. Eva looked at the explosion-proof shield and muttered. This explosion-proof shield is provided by the Philippines. Otherwise, how could they get such good equipment? The president was a little angry. If only China could support him from behind. China was so rich. If they provided some planes and tanks, wouldn't they be able to defeat the other party? The president was daydreaming while Lu Xinnan had already drawn her bow and arrow. Her bow and arrow were condensed from the power of her ability, and there was a pair of small wings on it. The bow and arrow were pulled to a full moon, and the pair of small wings had already spread out, as though it was about to fly. Swoosh! The bow and arrow shot out and turned into a lightning bolt, heading straight for the secretary. The secretary sneered. He hid behind the explosion-proof shield, and it was foolproof. However, the bow and arrow drew a beautiful parabola and shot down from above, directly blasting the megaphone. Fuck! The secretary was frightened out of his wits. There was actually such a move as a projectile. And they were so accurate. Who are these people? This time, it's just a warning. Bai Lin Luo sat there. Although his voice was soft, there was a loudspeaker that amplified his voice. Too arrogant. The secretary was furious. He felt that his authority was being challenged. Blow up their base. The secretary came out on behalf of the president, and he had a mission. He must not let the resistance army go. The 6 armored vehicles behind set up their turrets and aimed at the glass factory. Clear the target. Bai Lin Luo gave the order, and Max signaled his men. 6 mercenaries carried RPGs at the same time and fired. 6 missiles flew out and blew up the 6 armored vehicles, causing them to flip over. The secretary was stunned. What kind of firepower was this? Since when did the resistance army have such powerful firepower? Could it be that someone was supporting them from behind? The secretary was shocked. Before he could understand what was going on, an elite team of 20 people attacked from behind. These 20 people's marksmanship was godly, and they could knock down a government soldier with a single shot. When the government troops were about to attack them, the 20 of them immediately spread out and found cover. I'll kill you all. A government soldier with an RPG aimed at the bunker. A bullet suddenly pierced through his head. The RPG shell shot straight into the sky and exploded like fireworks. Eva adjusted her aim and aimed at the next target. The 2 brothers, Lu Chang and Lu Zhuang, were also among them. As 2 valiant generals, the 2 of them shouldered heavy responsibilities. Although Sun Qingshan had taught them before in terms of spear techniques. However, both of them were Guan Wenbao's beloved disciples and preferred to fight. One of them was holding a tri-edge bayonet, while the other was holding a tactical dagger. Taking advantage of the chaos on the battlefield, they liked to sneak up behind others and stab them in the throat. The 2 of them were competing to see who could kill more people. The 2 of them tore apart the enemies with their bare hands and killed more than the others. Eva was a little shocked as she looked at the 2 red-eyed officers who had been killed. Isn't it crazy to use close combat to kill people on the battlefield? Most importantly, they killed more people than me, and I'm a sniper. Eva was a little unsatisfied. She continued to fire and madly swept the battlefield. Sagittarius Lu Xinnan had not made a move since she shot the loudspeaker. She and Wang Xiaoyuan stood on the left and right, guarding Bai Lin Luo like door gods. Bai Lin Luo glanced at Lu Xiaohu. Xiaohu, it's time for you to get some exercise. Lu Xiaohu nodded. He was still young and needed to baptize his body and mind on the battlefield. Although he was still young, Lu Xiaohu's heart had grown a lot after experiencing some things. In the face of such a battlefield, he did not have the slightest fear. However, Bai Lin Luo still made him wear an extra bulletproof vest as an extra layer of insurance. Lu Xiaohu stood on the window of the glass factory. He bent his knees and his whole body bounced out like a spring. Lu Xiaohu's body was light. In the air, he performed Li Fan's best move, the swallow triple sweep. He swam 2 rounds in the air and fell into the enemy's group. Kill him. A group of government soldiers pointed their guns at Lu Xiaohu and pulled the trigger. Bullets rained down on Lu Xiaohu, but Lu Xiaohu stayed close to the ground and crouched down. Like a tiger coming out of the mountains, he instantly avoided the bullets and jumped out. Lu Xiaohu broke into the enemy group and stuck close to the government soldiers. In this way, the other government soldiers could not shoot him. Lu Xiaohu's hands were like tiger claws. He was almost close to the ground, constantly tearing the enemy's calves. He still showed mercy and tore the enemy's calves to pieces, but spared their lives. Even if Lu Xiaohu's martial arts were high, he was still young and could not bear to kill people. Seeing that Lu Xiaohu, a teenager, was able to kill 7 enemies, Eva was even more surprised. What the hell is this kid? Did he take the angel medicine? What kind of experts are there in Prodigy? Retreat. Quickly retreat. The secretary already knew how powerful they were. No wonder the commander of the 3 armies lost so badly last time. No, now I must gather all the combat power to defend the presidential palace. The secretary let the remaining half of the army protect him and began to flee toward the presidential palace. No need to chase. Bai Lin Luo waved his hand, signaling for everyone to stop. No hurry to kill them, I like to negotiate first. The smile on Bai Lin Luo's face was unfathomable. Our combat power is enough to wipe them out, why do we need to negotiate with them? Max couldn't figure it out and directly asked. The war is your mercenary group's business. Bai Lin Luo explained, but the negotiation is my business. No matter what, this is a city, and there are many innocent people living here. If we continue to fight like this, they will definitely be hurt, so I hope we can resolve this peacefully. What is needed on the battlefield is not kindness. Max reminded Bai Lin Luo. Only those who are not capable enough will want to kill them all. Bai Lin Luo's words made Max speechless. Our leader is doing this for your own good. Eva stared at Bai Lin Luo, but Bai Lin Luo just smiled. Vice Leader Eva, I hope you pay attention to your attitude toward me. From now on, I am your superior. My superior is only Max. Eva pulled out a silenced pistol from her leg and pointed it at Bai Lin Luo. Bai Lin Luo showed no fear. Chapter 742. Eva. Max looked at Eva with his blue eyes, but he didn't stop her. Bai Lin Luo knew that Max was deliberately trying to embarrass him. This was a show of strength, waiting for him to make a fool of himself. Eva's muzzle was aimed at Bai Lin Luo, but Bai Lin Luo didn't show any fear. Wang Xiaoyuan picked up the shield, and Eva laughed. Do you think such a small shield can stop my bullets? Eva didn't put Wang Xiaoyuan's small round shield in her eyes at all, and couldn't help but mock. Do you think you're Captain America? Captain America relies on genes. Bai Lin Luo reminded Eva, I rely on superpowers. While speaking, Lu Xinan had already pulled her bow and arrow. Eva didn't hesitate and immediately fired. She fired 5 shots in a row, hitting 5 places on Bai Lin Luo's body. It was impossible to block them with a small round shield. But Wang Xiaoyuan held the shield and moved to 5 places in an instant. In the midst of the sparks, the 5 bullets were all bounced off. At the same time, Lu Xinan's bow and arrow also shot out. The arrow hit Eva's pistol and nailed it on the wall next to her. Eva, on the other hand, pulled out another pistol from her pocket, and Lu Xinan's arrow was nailed to the ground at her feet. Enough, Eva! Max hurriedly stopped her. Stop it. Officer Bai has a good temper, and he won't stoop to your level. If it were me, I would definitely punish you according to military law. Max was now using words to stop Bai Lin Luo, but Bai Lin Luo didn't buy it. Deputy Commander Eva has no respect for her superior and disregards military discipline. She will be put in prison for half a month. Bai Lin Luo was already considered to be lenient, so Max couldn't say anything more and could only accept his fate. Although Eva was still a little unconvinced, 2 security guards from Phenom had already stepped forward and handcuffed her hands. Eva struggled twice, but it was useless. Sir Bai, I hope that a great person like you will forgive me. Watching Eva being pulled away, Max could not help but plead. At this time, the burly French Hercules bolt blocked the way of the 2 extraordinary security guards. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and picked them up. It was like picking up 2 chicks. Stop, Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt was a fierce general in Wolf Warriors. At this moment, his action of protecting Eva put Max in a difficult position. Usain Bolt was too big. As the saying goes, a strong body does not lose out. The 2 security guards struggled for a long time but could not escape Usain Bolt's grasp. Just then Lu Xiaohu walked back. When he saw Usain Bolt bullying his own people, he immediately snorted and walked over to Usain Bolt. Bolt glanced at Lu Xiaohu and didn't take this young man seriously. He lifted his leg and kicked at Lu Xiaohu. Lu Xiaohu gently leaned to the side and avoided the strong man's kick. At the same time, his elbow smashed down and hit the burly man's calf. The burly man's calf cracked as his bones were fractured. Lu Xiaohu took the opportunity to take a step forward and used Black Tiger climbing the mountain on the burly man who was falling towards him. After 3 moves, he pressed down on the burly man's head and slammed him to the ground. Usain Bolt fainted. Lu Xiaohu clapped his hands and glanced at the mercenaries who were ready to make a move. The remaining mercenaries of Wolf Warriors were dumbfounded. No one dared to step forward and touch the bad luck. Although the Wolf Warriors mercenaries were elites and very united, the current situation was already very awkward. Everyone knew that Eva was helping Max to give Bai Lin Luo a show of strength so that the employer would understand the status of the Wolf Warriors mercenary corps. But now, not only did they not give a show of strength, they were even kicked by the horse. Max's expression was also very ugly, but he could not get angry. Bai Lin Luo's swift and decisive methods made him understand the gap between him and the other party. The Wolf Warriors mercenary corps had lost this game. From now on, he could only listen to Bai Lin Luo's commands. Officer Bai, you won. I admire you. Max bowed to Bai Lin Luo. Please forgive me, Officer Bai. All right, since we will be family in the future, I will not fuss over this small matter. Bai Lin Luo had a big stick in one hand and a sweet date in the other. He waved his hand, indicating that he let go of Eva. In the future, we will have to face a common enemy. I hope that Captain Max can help me. The warriors who went to the battlefield today have worked hard. Later, each of you can go and collect 20,000 yuan as a reward for winning the first battle. Thank you, Officer Bai. Max imitated the Oriental style and cupped his hands at Bai Lin Luo. He imitated it quite well. One look and it was obvious that he had studied it carefully. Susu. Bai Lin Luo turned his head and asked the beautiful Susu who was sitting at the side. What? Help me make a trip and contact the government army. Bai Lin Luo smiled. Tell them that we want to negotiate. Sure, let little tiger protect me. Susu agreed. On this side, Susu was basically Bai Lin Luo's left and right hand. Although he could summon some good guy card warriors, they did not have high IQ and could only carry out some simple orders. It was impossible to get them to negotiate. However, Susu was a little weak in terms of strength. She needed someone to protect her. Sure. Bai Lin Luo nodded and agreed to Susu's request. Eva, you go with Susu. Bai Lin Luo looked at Eva. It's up to you whether you can make up for your crime. Hurry up and thank the officer. Max hurriedly glared at Eva, and only then did Eva agree. Thank you, officer. Eva shouted somewhat unwillingly. Bai Lin Luo waved his hand. All right, go and rest for today. Tomorrow, we will negotiate with the government army. I think it won't be long before the government army comes knocking on our door. Bai Lin Luo gently stretched. After a day of torment, everyone should be tired. Let's all rest. Are we going to use this place as our base? Max asked. Yes, the glass factory has a good geographical environment. It's good to make a headquarters. When the negotiation is over, we will go to the presidential palace. Bai Lin Luo's face was full of confidence, as if he had a card up his sleeve. The president only felt that this young man was a little unfathomable, as if he had everything planned out. It's indeed not bad here. Bai Lin Luo took a deep breath. It's rare to breathe such comfortable air outside. When they were in China, Bai Lin Luo and the rest could only hide on the ship and rarely went outside. But on this island, the sky was high and the sea was wide, and the birds were free to fly. Moreover, there was a school on this island. Bai Lin Luo could go to school again. This was what made him the happiest. Chapter 743. To Bai Lin Luo, this place was like a paradise. A paradise for mutants. Bai Lin Luo stayed in the office, one hand on the prophet's skull, communicating with him. His mind was filled with the knowledge provided by the prophet, allowing Bai Lin Luo to constantly enrich himself. The prophet's knowledge was huge, which was like nutrition, making Bai Lin Luo hungry and thirsty, swimming in this sea of knowledge. The prophet was like an artificial AI, following by his side, helping him to find the content he wanted. Every time Bai Lin Luo communicated with the prophet, he could not help but have some philosophical questions. For example, who am I, where do I come from, and where do I go? The three philosophical questions, even the prophet could not answer Bai Lin Luo. Over time, Bai Lin Luo did not delve into these questions. This is the origin of the world. The prophet brought Bai Lin Luo to observe the origin of the entire earth. Wait. Bai Lin Luo could not help but have another philosophical question. Since there is an origin, then, does the human world have an end? Naturally. The prophet actually answered Bai Lin Luo. Do you want to take a look? There really is. I want to take a look. Bai Lin Luo was very curious. The prophet pulled him up and directly traveled through time, arriving in the future. Bai Lin Luo stood on a tall building, looking at the city full of green vegetation. This city? How long has it been since anyone lived in it? Bai Lin Luo was very surprised. This city had been abandoned for at least 10 years. A long time? This place is just the beginning. The prophet said, because of a man, the entire world started World War III. A power even more terrifying than nuclear weapons swept the entire world. A power even more terrifying than nuclear weapons? Bai Lin Luo became suspicious. Is there such a power? Of course there is. For example, the power of us mutants, when stimulated to a certain extent, can surpass nuclear weapons. For example, if the creator obtained the power of Evil Demon Island, he could cause the entire world's people to have a mental breakdown. If that's the case, then are there still people left in this world? The prophet nodded. The originator of everything, the creator of the apocalypse, he alone owns the entire world. After the prophet finished speaking, he pointed into the distance. Bai Lin Luo turned his head and saw a man in a black and white coat standing on a building in the distance. This man's appearance was very familiar. It was Li Fan, the Li Fan from 10 years later. He was sitting at the edge of the building. He had a beard on his face, and he looked like he had been through a lot. Li Fan, Bai Lin Luo exclaimed. At this time, Li Fan suddenly turned his head and looked at Bai Lin Luo, who was floating in midair. You came? While Li Fan was talking, he somehow arrived in front of Bai Lin Luo. A pair of golden flying lion wings appeared behind Li Fan, allowing him to float in midair. You are, go back and stop me, Li Fan said and pointed a finger at Bai Lin Luo's forehead. Bai Lin Luo felt a sharp pain and suddenly opened his eyes and woke up. He was shocked to find that the prophet's skull in front of him had a crack on its forehead, and then it shattered into pieces. Oh no! Bai Lin Luo tried to pick up these pieces of bone, but as soon as he touched one of the bones, it turned into white ash and scattered everywhere. The prophet has completely disappeared. Bai Lin Luo actually felt a wave of fear. What is this situation? Just now in the world of the prophet's consciousness, he saw Li Fan. At that time, Li Fan was known as the destroyer of the world. Yet he actually saw him and even talked to him. Most importantly, the prophet has disappeared. Everything that had happened was too strange. Bai Lin Luo felt that his brain was a bit inadequate, as if his ability to think had stopped. Just as Bai Lin Luo was unable to organize his thoughts, a knock came from the door. "Chief, the government's diplomat is here." "Got it." Bai Lin Luo patted his face to wake himself up a little. The disappearance of the prophet made Bai Lin Luo somewhat panic. However, he must suppress this panic at the bottom of his heart. He is the chief of the Special Abilities Bureau and the person in charge of this island, so he must stay alert. Bai Lin Luo adjusted his mood and opened the door. Susu stood outside, dressed in plain clothes, but it could not hide her beauty. With such a beauty by his side, Bai Lin Luo's heart had never been tempted. Because there has always been one person in his heart, and that is Liao Wushuang. "Let's go. Anyway, I'm just a representative of Li Fan." Bai Lin Luo said, "In terms of rank, it's not beneath me to meet this diplomat. By the way, call the president and ask him to meet this diplomat." Susu nodded. The diplomat sat in the temporary living room of the glass factory. There was only a long, dilapidated table and broken chairs. The diplomat coldly snorted in his heart. These people probably got resources from somewhere and are just a bit arrogant. The government has the support of the Philippines behind them. With the support of a big country, how could these small characters fight against them? The Philippines has provided them with 2 excellent troops, which will arrive in a few days. At that time, it will be the death of these people. He came here to delay for a few days. As long as some conditions of these resistance forces are met, they will agree with a smile. Some greedy guys hope that they know what satisfaction is. Soon, a boy who looks like a high school student walked down. Beside him was a beauty and a familiar guy. It is the person they have wanted for a long time, the fake president of the resistance forces. At that moment, the diplomat wanted to pull out his pistol and kill him. But he resisted this impulse. After all, in order to show his sincerity, he did not bring a gun. "You are Bai Lin Luo?" The diplomat stood up and extended his hand, but there was some arrogance in his expression. "I am a diplomat from the Luofu government. My name is Parker." "Hello, I am Mr. Li Fan's representative." Bai Lin Luo smiled and calmly sat in front of the diplomat. "Tell me, why are you here?" "Good, Officer Bai is really straightforward." The diplomat said, "I know you have some strength, but our government has the support of a big country. I think if you continue to fight with us, you will only die." "Really?" Bai Lin Luo smiled. "When did the Philippines become a big country?" "Behind the Philippines is the United States. Our weapons are the most advanced." Chapter 744. The diplomat's condescending attitude made not only Bai Lin Luo, but even the president was annoyed. These government troops were arrogant and preyed on the people. They should have been kicked out long ago. "Is that so?" Bai Lin Luo nodded. "All right then. Since the 2 sides can't come to an agreement, you can go back." Bai Lin Luo waved his hand. "Send the guest off." "Sir, please go back." Susu walked forward and gestured for the diplomat to leave. The diplomat was a little surprised. He didn't get up but looked at Bai Lin Luo. "Are you crazy? This is the only chance for you to survive. You don't cherish it? I think you're mistaken about one thing." Bai Lin Luo sat there calmly. "This opportunity is reserved for all of you." "What a joke." The diplomat finally stood up angrily. "Looks like there's nothing to talk about. Tomorrow, the Filipino army will arrive. Then, it will be the death of you people. Filipino, how do you expect them to help you? Send out their air force?" Bai Lin Luo laughed. "As far as I know, the Filipino Air Force is a training aircraft, right? Don't care what it is. We still have money. We can hire the Storm Mercenary Group. You know the Storm Mercenary Group, the world's most powerful mercenary group. They can destroy you scum in an instant." "All right, let's wait and see." Bai Lin Luo underestimated the arrogance of these government troops. Even at this point, after experiencing 2 crushing defeats, they still believed in their own combat power. If negotiations failed, then they could only use their fists. He couldn't cause trouble for Li Fan. He had to quickly solve the problem here. Heh, I look forward to a good night's sleep. When the diplomat left, he left behind some harsh words. I hope a bomb doesn't fall on your head while you sleep. Looks like they want to start a war. The president gave his opinion. Officer Bai, how do you plan to deal with it? My future garrison commander, what do you plan to do? Bai Lin Luo didn't answer and kicked the ball back to the president. With our armaments, it shouldn't be difficult to kill them in one go. The president said, while they are still waiting for foreign aid from the Philippines, we should attack overnight and completely recapture the presidential palace. Your method is very safe. It's not bad. Bai Lin Luo nodded. However, there is a very important loophole that you didn't take into account. Loophole? What loophole? Actually, to me, reclaiming this island is like playing a strategic game. Taking down the main base isn't a big deal. The key is that the enemy still has a sub-base that can provide combat power. Bai Lin Luo continued, if you want to fight, then beat them until they are completely convinced. I don't care about the foreign aid from the Philippines. I'll just wait for them to come over and I'll kill them all in one fell swoop. With our combat power, can we do all this? The president was a little worried. Although Bai Lin Luo's combat power was not bad, he was still unable to contend against a large country. Just watch. Bai Lin Luo was full of confidence. We still have one more combatant. He'll be here soon. With him, there won't be a problem. With just one person? Yes, with just one person. Bai Lin Luo nodded. The president wondered what kind of person could give Bai Lin Luo such confidence. Bai Lin Luo turned to leave, but his face instantly sank. When night fell, Bai Lin Luo stood on the dock with only Wang Xiaoyuan and Lu Xiaohu beside him, looking at a boat that was slowly docking in the distance. The boat slowly docked, and a handsome young man in a green robe walked down with a strong warhorse in his hand. Brother Guan, you're here. Bai Lin Luo looked at the green-robed general. I've already prepared a banquet. We're just waiting to welcome you back. You're too polite. Guan Wenbao cupped his hands at Bai Lin Luo. I'm not very hungry. As soon as he finished speaking, his stomach growled. Fortunately, Guan Wenbao's face was a little red, so he didn't look shy. Ha, you're still so polite. Bai Lin Luo couldn't help but laugh. Okay, let's go. Bai Lin Luo specially prepared a truck for Guan Wenbao to park his Lisa. Okay, then I'll just have a bite. Guan Wenbao was a little embarrassed. He followed Bai Lin Luo into a pickup truck. This car, Guan Wenbao was a little dazed after getting in the car. He felt a little back in the past when Li Fan was still a poor student. The conditions here are a little difficult, but it will get better. Bai Lin Luo guessed what Guan Wenbao was thinking. At least there's more freedom. It doesn't matter. Guan Wenbao said, when we first started, it was even more difficult than this. We didn't even have a car. Yeah, in the end, didn't we still develop quite well? Bai Lin Luo was very emotional. I really missed that time. Although we didn't have much money, everyone was still quite happy. Guan Wenbao leaned on the seat and closed his eyes to rest. Not long after he drove out, Guan Wenbao suddenly opened his eyes. What's wrong? Bai Lin Luo was smart and guessed that something must have happened. Guan Wenbao opened the window and looked outside. Someone is following us. Looks like it's the government. Bai Lin Luo glanced at the rearview mirror. They're probably thinking of ways to get rid of me. Okay, leave it to me. In the rearview mirror, 2 military off-road vehicles were driving over. The off-road vehicles were equipped with machine guns. Along with the dazzling headlights, the chain of bullets began to move. The bullets were like rain, flying toward Bai Lin Luo's car. Unknowingly, Guan Wenbao was standing on the roof of the pickup truck. He stretched out both of his hands, one hand holding the handle, the other hand pulling out a long blade, combining them together, and with a swing, a crescent moon blade appeared. He looked at the 2 off-road vehicles and jumped to the ground. Kill him. One of the off-road vehicles increased its horsepower and charged toward Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao stood there, unmoved. Facing the incoming off-road vehicle, he only raised his crescent moon blade. Half-moon flash. The off-road vehicle was directly cut in half by Guan Wenbao's blade. The other off-road vehicle had already run far away. Guan Wenbao whistled, and the back door of the truck was smashed open. Lisa let out a long whistle, jumped out of the truck, and ran to Guan Wenbao's side. Guan Wenbao got on his horse, rode it, and chased after the off-road vehicle. The off-road vehicle was driving very fast, but Lisa didn't lose out at all. Her hooves kept galloping, as if she was riding on a cloud. Soon, she caught up to the off-road vehicle and ran side by side with it. The machine gunner on the off-road vehicle turned his machine gun and aimed at Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao swept his crescent moon blade and instantly cut the machine gun in half. Chapter 745. The machine gunner was stunned. Looking at the broken machine gun in his hand, he couldn't recover for a long time. What's going on? Guan Wenbao stabbed with his saber and pierced the off-road vehicle's tire. The off-road vehicle flipped over and smashed to the side of the road. After easily dealing with the two off-road vehicles, Lisa brought Guan Wenbao back to the pickup truck. "Do you want to get in?" Bai Lin Luo asked. "No, it's not easy to find a place with few cars. Let Lisa run freely." In China, a horse doesn't have many places to gallop. Guan Wenbao could feel the excitement of the Fergana horse under him. He put away his saber and whipped the horse. Bai Lin Luo leaned back on the chair and could finally breathe a sigh of relief. With Guan Wenbao here, he can relax a lot. Old Guan is Li Fan's favorite general. With him here, the fighting strength of this side has the final guarantee. On the government side, the new president received the news from his subordinates and flew into a rage. "Trash, a bunch of trash." The new president cursed, "What's the point of raising you? You can't even kill one person." President, that Bai Lin Luo has an expert beside him. The secretary lowered his head, feeling a bit ashamed and helpless. "Really powerful." "Bullshit. They have experts, but we don't?" The foreign aid from the Philippines is about to arrive. I heard that he's an expert with a stick and is internationally famous." The secretary quickly said, "With his help, we can definitely subdue those Chinese martial artists." "That's more like it." The new president said, I want them dead." The next morning, Bai Lin Luo brought his people all the way to the presidential palace. The presidential palace is already on standby. The new president personally stood in a command vehicle, looking at the rebels outside with a smile on his face. The diplomat stood next to him, waiting to see how the rebels would be wiped out. This is a big battle. Both sides have sufficient confidence in their own fighting strength. Bai Lin Luo was not so timid. He stood in front of the army, and Wang Xiaoyuan followed him. Actually, to Bai Lin Luo, he felt that this battle was more like a fight with a Beijing flavor. However, this was also in line with his goal. He would try his best not to let the battle escalate and affect the innocent civilians. "Are you courting death?" One of the cars had a large screen with the image of the new president. He laughed on the screen with a smug look on his face. "This island belongs to me. It's ridiculous that you want to overthrow my regime. Mr. President, don't you think we look like children?" Bai Lin Luo said through the loudspeaker. "You are a real child." The new president chuckled. "How about this? I heard that you're from China, so I know a little about your rules. We've invited an expert, and he's willing to fight with your expert. What do you think?" "Sure." Bai Lin Luo agreed. "Old Guan, I'll have to trouble you." "Okay, I like fighting in front of the army." Guan Wenbao dragged his Yenyue Dao and walked to the front of the battlefield. On the government side, a Filipino man less than 1.6 meters tall walked out. Although it was already late autumn in China, the weather on the island was still very hot. The man was bare-chested, but his muscles were strong like a boulder. This man was carrying 2 short sticks from the Philippines. He raised one of the sticks and pointed it at Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao was 1.88 meters tall, taller than the man by 2 heads. He looked down at him as if he was looking at a child. This is the stick master from the Philippines. The secretary also stood in the command vehicle and said to the new president, "In the international fighting competition, this master won second place. Not bad. With such an expert, I'm afraid the other side will have to admit defeat." The new president was very happy, waiting for this stick master to win first place. The stick master from the Philippines held 2 short sticks and waved them a few times. He looked extremely fierce. "I'll kill you!" He roared at Guan Wenbao, then leaped forward and swung the short stick in his hand at Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao did not even swing his sword. He raised his leg and kicked the stick master's chest. The stick master was kicked away and hit an armored vehicle behind him. He immediately fainted. This is the master you mentioned. An expert. The new president was furious. The secretary's face was also pale. He did not expect this master from the Philippines to be KO'd in one move. "Kill that green-robed guy." The new president roared. All the guns were aimed at Guan Wenbao. But at this time, Lisa suddenly rushed out of the crowd and ran to Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao directly jumped on the horse. 1 man and 1 horse, carrying a crescent moon blade, directly rushed into the enemy and began to fight. Guan Wenbao's blade was covered with blade energy. With a casual swing, a blade energy shot out and tore the surrounding enemies into pieces. Bai Lin Luo hurriedly gave the order and also ordered Wang Xiaoyuan to protect Guan Wenbao. Although Guan Wenbao was good at attacking, he was not good at defense. Once he was focused on, he would quickly be turned into a sieve. He also had Lu Xinnan to protect him, so he would not be in too much danger. Guan Wenbao's combat strength had already shocked the future garrison commander and the mercenaries of Wolf Warrior. They were not to be outdone. They mobilized their troops and began to wipe out the government's combat strength. The foreign aid provided by the Philippines was only 2 teams of soldiers. These countries that even their own national army was a joke could not provide much help at all. On the other hand, Bai Linluo's army was made up of elites. Even the resistance army was used to fighting guerrilla warfare. They always appeared sneakily and slipped away after being attacked by the enemy. The most dazzling ones were Guan Wenbao and Lu Xiaohu. The 2 of them were like gods of war, killing non-stop in the crowd. There were not many government troops to begin with, and there were less than 1,000 of them left. Very soon, most of them were killed, and the rest began to raise the white flag to surrender. They were mercenaries to begin with, and some of them were even citizens of the island who had been recruited by the army. Now that the government army was being crushed, they did not want to work for the government. With almost no casualties, the government army was completely defeated. Under the protection of some personal guards, the new president hid in the command vehicle with a pale face, preparing to escape from the battlefield. However, Bai Lin Luo waved his hand, and Lu Xinnan shot an arrow. The arrow hit the car's tire, and the car immediately burst. It tilted to the side and crashed into a tree at the side. The car door was smashed, and the new president, secretary, and diplomat all fell out. They rolled on the ground in a sorry state. The mercenaries of Wolf Warrior immediately stepped forward, grabbed their arms, and pressed them to the ground. Chapter 746. In a dramatic decisive battle, Bai Lin Luo and the rest did not suffer any losses and captured the presidential palace. Bai Lin Luo felt a bit bored because this mission was not difficult at all. It would be great if there were some experts in the government army. Whether it was a mutant expert or a martial fighter expert, it would at least increase the fun of the challenge. He himself was also a bit conflicted. Although it was not challenging, at least there were no casualties on his side. Bai Lin Luo felt very conflicted. It was probably because after the prophet disappeared, it made him feel a sense of emptiness. "Brother Guan, thank you for this time." When sending off Guan Wenbao, Bai Lin Luo was a bit reluctant and personally came to the dock to send off Guan Wenbao. At this moment, this Luofu island has completely changed owners and is now the Li family's name. When you go back, help me tell Li Fan that he will come and take a look when he has time. I will help him manage this island very well. "I will." Guan Wenbao nodded and left Luofu Island with Lisa. Bai Lin Luo returned to the presidential palace, which is now his territory. The president of the resistance is standing in his office, waiting for him. Now, he is dressed in a police uniform and is already the commander of the guards here. The commander of the guards bowed to Bai Lin Luo. Bai Lin Luo sat down, and a lot of officers came to the office one after another. These are the members of the new government. Bai Lin Luo's mission is to build this Luofu Island. From today onwards, this is no longer the Luofu Island. Bai Lin Luo said, from today onwards, this is called Li Family Island. May I ask, sir, to name this island after a person's surname, what kind of system are we going to follow? Max, who is now also a commander, immediately asked. Constitutional monarchy. Bai Lin Luo said directly, in the future, I will be the Prime Minister of Li Family Island, and Mr. Li Fan will be the Emperor of Li Family Island. Constitutional monarchy. When a few people heard this, they were shocked to death. Will this work? Susu couldn't help but ask. Don't worry, this island is firmly under our control. Bai Lin Luo had already begun to build an intelligence network. And for the people on this island, they don't care who their leader is. They only care about who can give them the best life. With that, Bai Lin Luo gave Susu a look. Susu nodded. We have 2 oil and gas fields on the sea. They're not very large. We can set up a company to exploit them and then sell them to other countries. However, shouldn't these resources belong to Huaxia? Although Li Xiaohu was young, he was quite intelligent. Hearing Bai Lin Luo and the others' discussion, he couldn't help but ask, won't we get beaten up if we casually mine? I wonder how many such small-scale oil and gas fields there are in China. Susu continued, if we want to develop, we must first use a wave. This island needs to survive without attracting the attention of the world. Well, most of it is still mainly aquatic products. Bai Lin Luo only left a large rear for Li Fan. We'll build on this side first. It won't be long before Lu Xinan buys the ownership of this island. At that time, it won't be a problem for us to develop however we want. I think it's feasible. Susu nodded. As long as we get the ownership of the island, everything will be fine. The garrison commander felt depressed. This group of people could even get the ownership of the island. This was a real legal regime. On this kind of island, they were the local tyrants. Having just finished a war, the security of the island's residents must be very low. Bai Lin Luo continued, what we need now is to recuperate and strengthen the security of the island's residents. He glanced at the garrison commander. Do a good job of security. Don't let those lawbreakers do evil at this time. Well, don't worry. I've already sent 5 teams to specialize in daily security. The garrison commander nodded. We definitely won't let the island become chaotic. Okay. Currently, the population of our island is 120,000. Bai Lin Luo said, it's about the same as a county. Work hard and strive to let the island's population exceed 1 million. The old government left behind some funds. We can use them to build this island. The garrison commander suggested. In the resistance army, I got to know someone from another country. He has some achievements in construction. Why don't we hire him as the Minister of Construction? There are still a lot of facilities that need to be built on the island. What do you think? Sure, I'll wait for him in the room. Let him come find me. Bai Lin Luo nodded. Right now was the time to hire people. He welcomed anyone with talent. After the meeting, Bai Lin Luo still stayed in the office, waiting for the Minister of Construction. After 2 hours, a middle-aged Oriental man who looked a little down and out, but was still well-dressed, walked in. Hello, sir. My name is Honda Sakura. The other party spoke in Japanese-style English. Island Nation? Bai Lin Luo looked at Honda Sakura a few more times. He seemed to be a little poor, but his clothes were still very exquisite. He was wearing a blue and black suit, and the fabric was not from the island. It should be the work of a master tailor in Italy. Yes, sir, you should be from China. Honda Sakura spoke in a gentlemanly manner. I am the butler of a famous family in the island, but my family was later involved in politics and was destroyed. I had to wander around various countries and finally came to this beautiful island. You have some experience in construction? Yes, I have some experience. I hope I can help you. Honda Sakura bowed. Bai Lin Luo thought for a moment, then asked. Then what do you think the island needs the most right now? I heard that you are preparing to exploit the oil and gas fields, which is very good. However, what the island needs the most right now is some infrastructure. We need to expand the power plant and the water plant. With these, we can build the next facilities. What are we going to build next? Residential buildings. Honda Sakura smiled. Right now, the accommodation environment on the island is too poor. We need more apartment buildings to raise the standard of living of the residents and to attract more people to live here. Only with manpower can we develop other things. Good, your suggestion is not bad. Bai Lin Luo nodded, then you can come and try it out for a while. Thank you, sir. Honda Sakura bowed very solemnly. I will definitely assist you well. Bai Lin Luo's heart calmed down a little. Everything on the island was developing in the direction he wanted, but he did not know how Li Fan was doing. Counting the days, it should be Murong Bo's birthday, right? Chapter 747. Murong Bo's birthday had indeed arrived. Li Fan was already worried about it. Early in the morning, Tai Zhu had already prepared the car and gifts, and then woke up Li Fan from his sleep. Son-in-law, it's time to get up. Looking at the bright red clothes on Tai Zhu, Li Fan felt a little dizzy, and his sleepiness was gone. Are you getting married? If you don't marry, how can I get married? Tai Zhu's infinite shyness made Li Fan's heart tremble. No matter how high his state of mind was, when facing Tai Zhu, he was always at a disadvantage. This woman was poisonous. If you do this, I will not marry for life. Li Fan couldn't help but tell the truth. Son-in-law, you look so happy. It's so sad to say such words. Tai Zhu said shyly, I have long been ready to get married. Well, you get ready first. I will get up and tidy up. Li Fan stood up and Tai Zhu followed him closely. Son-in-law, let me help you wash up. No need, I can do it myself. Li Fan laughed dryly. How can I do that? I have to serve the son-in-law well. Li Fan simply refused Tai Zhu's kindness. He looked around and asked, Where are the two ladies? Second miss has gone home early, and eldest miss is waiting in the car. They are ready so early. Li Fan looked outside. The sky was still bright. Today is the master's birthday. This is a big event in Jianghu. There are a lot of things to do early in the morning. Tai Zhu said, There are a lot of rules in a big family. Can I not go? Li Fan asked tentatively. Tai Zhu took out a rope from his bosom. First Miss said that if the young master doesn't comply, she'll kidnap the young master and bring him over. Fuck, Li Fan was speechless. This Murong Ing was really something. Okay, I'll go. Li Fan had agreed to it a long time ago. Although he really didn't want to go, he had no choice but to go at this time. He went to the bathroom to wash up. When he came out, Tai Zhu had already prepared the new clothes. This was a set of golden red arrow sleeves robe. The material was very exquisite, and one could tell at a glance that it was a high-grade product. After all, it was Murong's house. None of the things they used were cheap. When Li Fan put on the long robe with arrow sleeves, he looked more heroic. He straightened his clothes in front of the mirror and walked out of the room. When he came outside, Murong Ying's Bentley was already waiting there. You got up too late. After getting in the car, the first thing he got was the cynicism of his fiancée. Today, Murong Ing was wearing a fiery red cheongsam with a black phoenix embroidered on it, looking very noble and elegant. It must be a very happy thing for such a beautiful chief of martial arts to be her fiancé. Only Li Fan was a little different. You got up too early. Li Fan leaned on the chair and began to close his eyes to rest. Finding that Li Fan didn't look at her all the time, Murong Ing was a little unhappy and pouted. This guy, don't I have charm? She gently flipped her hair, as if doubting her charm. This damn man. How was your harvest this time when you sneaked out? Murong Ing suddenly asked. Not bad. Li Fan felt that it was better to ask Murong Ing about some things. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked at his beautiful fiancée. Do you know Imperial Consort Zhou? Imperial Consort Zhou? When Murong-ing heard this name, she pondered for a moment. Are you talking about Imperial Consort Zhou of the Great Ming Dynasty, Zhou Wanshu? Hey, you know her? Li Fan was a little surprised. Of course I know. The legendary chief of the Heaven Alliance, Lu Jinchan, is Zhou Wanshu's descendant. Ah? Zhou Wanshu's son? How is that possible? Zhou Wanshu's sister is Empress Zhou. Empress Zhou once had a daughter who married a member of the Lu family during the chaos of war. And Lu Jinchan was born in this family. What the? Lu Jinchan and Zhou Wanshu had such a relationship? Speaking of which, the martial arts of the two of them seemed to be somewhat similar. Li Fan pondered for a moment. If Lu Jinchan's 9 Buddha Sutra was reversed, it would be the star power technique. To a certain extent, the star power technique was no different from the Vairocana Heart Sutra. They both absorbed the opponent's power for one's own use. Speaking of which, that Murong-bo also seemed to be practicing this kind of martial art in private. What a so-called righteous sect. Right now, Li Fan had an indescribable disgust towards Murong-bo. This old bastard, he even had to celebrate his birthday for him. This was too fucked up. Speaking of which, this Zhou Wanshu was also a mysterious woman in history. Murong Villa, was well versed in the history of the pugilistic world. That's why I know such a secret. But how did you know? Murong-ing put on a doubtful expression. If I said that I met Imperial Consort Zhou, would you believe me? What did you say? Murong-ing leaned forward, almost pressing on Li Fan's body. Are you joking? No. Since you know Imperial Consort Zhou, then you should know her name, the Undead Evil Buddha, right? Impossible. Murong-ing absolutely did not believe. Although it's the Undead Evil Buddha, she has already been sealed in the Dragon's Cave. You know a lot. Li Fan looked at Murong-ing, who was close at hand. Can you explain? Murong family, used to be Lu Jinchan's protector. Murong-ing very frankly said, regarding the matter of Imperial Consort Zhou, Murong family, and Dong ye should know the best. I entered the Great Ming Dynasty's treasure. Li Fan told Murong-ing, inadvertently revived Imperial Consort Zhou. Murong-ing's face turned pale and sat back on her seat. This time, you really caused a big disaster. This was the first time Li Fan saw such a panicked expression on his fiancée's face. You are the Wulin Alliance's leader. What are you afraid of? Li Fan said, Zhou Wanshu, let me block her. Yes, in the tomb under the sea, I have already defeated her once. Li Fan's words made Murong-ing a little surprised. When I reach the level of a generation's master, I will no longer be afraid of that Zhou Wanshu. When she broke through the 8th level of martial arts and entered the level of a generation's master, Zhou Wanshu and Li Fan would no longer be in her eyes. The Zhou Wanshu you met is not at her peak. Murong-ing reminded Li Fan, when you meet her at her peak, you will know how terrible this switch is. Are you afraid? Me? Murong-ing thought for a moment and said, I just want to try, between me and her, who is the number one in the world. Chapter 748. So that's the case. Li Fan looked at Murong-ing and asked, but why did you look so panicked just now? I was panicking not for me, but for the people in the martial arts world. Murong-ing gently held her chin and looked out of the window. The martial arts world is like duckweed now, and I don't know when it will collapse. As the leader of the martial arts world, isn't it normal for me to be worried about the affairs in the martial arts world? You care too much. You can't even take care of your own business. Li Fan couldn't help but remind her, think about Murong's family. You haven't even taken care of such a big mess yet. Daddy will naturally worry about the affairs of Murong's family. Murong-ing shrugged her shoulders. Even if I want to, I can't. What happens in the world of martial artists will be decided by the world of martial artists themselves. Li Fan said, everything in the world has its own rules, and it's the same for the martial arts world. What you said does make sense, But I'm still the leader of the martial arts world, not you. Li Fan couldn't refute Murong Ying's words and could only shrug his shoulders. You still have the cheek to criticize me? If you release Imperial Consort Zhou, there will be a bloodbath in the martial arts world again. Anyway, I'm about to become a big villain in the martial arts world. Li Fan laughed and continued, if I release another villain, I'll make up a pair. You can still laugh. Of course. Li Fan nodded and continued, speaking of which, the Heart Sutra of Mavrokana is going to appear again. Do you feel nervous? What's there to be nervous about? It's just an evil technique, Murong Ying said in disdain. Li Wei's martial arts are evil too. I've never been afraid of him. I'll definitely surpass him within a year. Murong Ying was very domineering. Her words were not wrong at all. Li Fan believed her too. However, too many things could happen within a year. But, you know that the Vairocana Heart Sutra and the 9 Buddha Sutra are somewhat similar. Of course. When Lu Jinshan was cultivating the 9 Buddha Sutra, it was said that he was inspired by Zhou Wanshu. I see. Li Fan felt that this chat was more meaningful. He didn't attend Murong's birthday party in vain. However, it seemed like these questions could be asked at home. There was no need for a birthday celebration at all. Apart from showing off, this old man's birthday celebration had no other meaning. This was what Li Fan thought. When we get to Murong's house, please try not to talk. Murong Ying knew Li Fan's temper, but she still reminded him, just take it as me asking you for a favor. Got it. I'm prepared. As Li Fan spoke, he stretched out his hand and poked his throat. Murong Ying blinked her eyes. Li Fan used the crane poking technique to poke her voice. About 4 hours later, Li Fan couldn't make a sound. This guy was really ruthless. In this way, he didn't have to bicker with Murong anymore. Murong Ying was actually a little touched. This was already not easy for Li Fan. Thank you. Murong Ying didn't say anything else. She would return this favor in the future. The Bentley drove very fast. Murong's house was in the suburbs of a city, a beautiful villa. It was also at this time that a city would become the center of the entire Jianghu. All the famous sects would send their representatives to celebrate Murong's birthday. The people from Sword Reliance should also come. Murong Ying glanced at Li Fan. You have to pay more attention to them when the time comes. Li Fan nodded and didn't make a sound. He couldn't make a sound now. He simply closed his eyes and began to adjust his breathing. He had just entered the 7th level, and his strength still needed to build a good foundation. Although Li Fan wanted to enter the 8th level as soon as possible, he heard that after he reached the 8th level he would become very powerful. However, the realm couldn't be broken through overnight. Although he had forcefully broken through to the 8th level before, he had also gone berserk and lost his calm. This was the price of quickly improving his strength. To really practice martial arts well, he still had to practice step by step. The car stopped, and Murong's villa was next to it. Today, there were a lot of cars parked outside Murong's villa. It was really more lively than the New Year. Li Fan followed Murong Ying out of the car. Immediately, there were a lot of Jianghu people pointing at them. Look, it's the chief of Wulin. So young and beautiful, if only she would like me, many young geniuses couldn't help but say. Stop dreaming. Don't you see who the person beside her is? Those people pointed at Li Fan. Oh, he looks very young. Fool. This is Murong Ying's fiancé, little tyrant Li Fan. Little tyrant Li Fan? Ever since Murong Ying met Li Fan's name was already famous in Jianghu. Now that the title of little tyrant was spread out, it had weight. When they heard that Murong Ying's fiancé was little tyrant, many people had no choice but to back off. But there were still a lot of people who were itching to spar with Li Fan and defeat Li Fan to win Murong Ying's heart. Li Fan accompanied Murong Ying. Just as he was about to enter Murong's villa, a young genius from Tang's sect walked over. I heard that you defeated my junior brother. Why don't we take the opportunity to spar today? Before that Tang sect disciple could finish his words, Li Fan used the crane tapping technique and pressed on his acupuncture point. His blood vessels were blocked. That guy stood on the spot and couldn't move at all. He could only blink his eyes. I'm sorry. Today is my father's birthday. Li Fan doesn't accept any challenges from outsiders. Murong Ing said to the surrounding people. Although her voice wasn't loud, it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Li Fan and Murong Ing walked into Murong's villa. It was also crowded inside. All kinds of people from the pugilistic world were walking back and forth, busy offering their blessings to Murong Bo. The two of them directly passed through the courtyard and walked into the courtyard until they arrived at the hall. Murong Bo was also wearing a festive red coat today. He sat on a wooden armchair and accepted the worship of the experts from the various sections. Seeing Li Fan and Murong Ing walk in, Murong Bo's face lit up and he immediately waved at Murong Ing. Look, my baby daughter is here. Come and sit. According to the rules of the Murong family, Murong Ing had the position of assistant. Li Fan planned to find a place to sit, but Murong Bo came over and pulled Li Fan to sit beside her. Brother-in-law, there are many people today. You have to bear with it. Murong Bo could feel Li Fan's agitated mood. She gently patted Li Fan's hand and comforted him. Heroes, you are all here today to give me Murong Bo face. After waiting for his daughter to come, Murong Bo cleared his throat and everyone quietened down. Chapter 749. Everyone was looking at Murong Bo, waiting to hear what he had to say. Other than celebrating my birthday today, there's another important matter that I hope everyone can decide on. This isn't the place to talk. I've already set up a banquet. Everyone, please move to the banquet hall. We can talk while we eat. As he spoke, these people stood up and walked towards the Dragon Phoenix Hall. This Dragon Phoenix Hall was a place that Murong Villa used to entertain guests. It was very large. Li Fan estimated that it was about 500 square meters. There were at least 100 tables set up below. Many people had to have a side table. Murong Ing was still sitting in Murong Bo's assistant. It was obvious that her smile was also very forced. Murong Ai pulled Li Fan and sat beside her. They were at a table not far from Murong Bo. This table was filled with people from Murong family. Li Fan was more or less familiar with many of them. For example, Murong Du. Back then, Murong Du was extremely angry when she saw Li Fan. She couldn't wait to trample on Li Fan. But now, Murong Du looked at Li Fan as if she was looking at a plague. She couldn't wait to stay as far away from Li Fan as possible. A few elders from Murong family sat on the other side. They looked at Li Fan with different expressions. Some were disdainful, some were angry, and some were disgusted. None of them liked Li Fan. They all had a negative attitude. Jiang Feng was also there. As Murong Bo's last disciple, he was sitting at a table far away. Only servants could sit. And on some tables below, Li Fan also saw some familiar faces. There seemed to be people from the 4 major alliances. The people from Sword Reliance were here as expected. They were led by Knight Rain Tower. He even winked at him. Fuck this guy, why do I feel like he's up to no good? The people from Huashan were there too. Qin Junhua was sitting there. As for the 5 Tigers sect disciple Kachuanza, he was also sitting at a nearby table. He did not look at Murong Weibo. He probably only had eyes for his old enemy, Qin Junhua. Murong Bo chuckled. She held a glass of wine and smiled at the guests below. Everyone, there's something else I want to talk about. It's been bothering me for a long time. Today is a good opportunity. I hope that everyone can help me study it together. The people below were all muttering in their hearts. What exactly was the matter that had to be brought up at this time? Murong Bo, this old fellow, what was he selling in his gourd? While these people were guessing, Murong continued, this is about my daughter's marriage. Everyone was shocked. Wasn't Murong Ying's marriage already promised to Li Fan? Could it be that Murong Bo wanted to break the engagement? Murong Ying didn't know about this either. She was a bit shocked and looked at her father. My little daughter has also reached the age of marriage. Murong Bo's words made everyone feel at ease. It turned out that he meant that Murong loved him. That was right. Murong was now a beautiful woman in her late 20s. According to the rules of the Jianghu, she should be betrothed to someone. There was no hurry to get married. At the very least, she had to find someone suitable. After all, Li Fan was just a commoner with no background. If Murong Mountain Villa wanted to continue to grow, it needed the help of a new family with a strong background. Marriage was the best way to do that. Everyone felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Only Murong loved it. She gently clenched her fists under the table. She was very unhappy. Li Fan felt the anger of Murong's love. He quietly held her little hand under the table. Murong Bo looked at her brother-in-law with some grievance. My daughter's birthday is on the 3rd day of the 12th month of the year. Murong Bo continued, at that time, I will set up a stage and set up 3 difficult questions. The heroes of the world. Whoever can solve these 3 questions will be my, Murong Bo's, son-in-law. Many people were eager to try. They could not wait to participate in the competition. Murong Bo was a little restless. Her heart was flustered. Li Fan gently held her hand, signaling her to be at ease. If Murong Bo wanted to marry his sister-in-law, it would have to depend on whether he was willing or not. Murong Ing did not say anything. It seemed that she did not care about this kind of thing. Perhaps in her heart, her sister had already grown up. It was indeed time for her to find a suitable boyfriend. Villa Master Murong. At this time, Night Rain Lu suddenly spoke. Murong Bo looked at Night Rain Lu. He did not know whether he was happy or annoyed with this man. Murong Bo was very deep. He only raised his head and looked at Night Rain Lu. He smiled but did not say anything. It seemed that he was waiting for Night Rain Lu to continue. Villa Master Murong Bo is in the prime of his life. His martial arts are matchless. I have long heard about it. Night Rain Lu cupped his hands and said with a smile, and Villa Master Murong Bo's eldest daughter, Murong Ing, is a heroine among women. She is the leader of the martial arts world. But Li Fan is from the grassroots. If he wants to climb up to the high branch of Murong Bo, isn't it a bit inappropriate? Li Fan's expression turned cold. This Night Rain Lu really began to make his move. Whether it is appropriate or not, it will naturally be decided by my Murong Bo. There is no need for young Hero Yi to worry about it. Murong Bo spoke politely. It's not that I'm worried about it. Actually, I'm here to express my sincerity as the leaning sword's smiling breeze. Night Rain Lu stood in front of the heroes and said loudly, I, Luo Shuo, the leader of Sword Reliance, would like to marry young Hero Li. Night Rain Lu, you are the commander of Sword Reliance. Murong Bo did not say anything. He just gave the Great Elder a look. The Great Elder immediately stood up, slapped the table and scolded. As the commander, you speak without propriety. How can I not propriety? How can you say this kind of thing in front of the heroes? What is your intention? The Great Elder asked sternly. This is a big matter. Why can't I say it in front of the heroes? Night Rain Lu did not flinch. He said word by word, moreover, young Hero Li is not married yet. What I said, is it against human relations or against the rules? You quibble. I am not quibbling. I think that men and women should get married when they are grown up. Your Murong Bo has never put young Hero Li in your eyes. But my Sword Reliance values him. Why can't you fight for it? Value? You are a commander. How can you say that? Then I can say it. At this moment, a woman pushed the door open and entered. She was dressed in a plain white robe and carried a sword on her back. Her beauty was comparable to that of Murong Ing. For a moment, everyone in the restaurant was stunned. Murong Ing secretly clenched the armrest of the chair and stared at Luo Shuewu in front of her. No one knew what was flashing in her eyes. Uncle, I am Luo Shuewu. I am here to wish you a happy birthday. There were a few faces behind Luo Shuewu. Li Fan was a little surprised. The 4 heavenly kings were all here. Jin Jumao, who was always close to Luo Shuewu and disdained men. Zhan Xiaoman, who was dressed in golden armor and was full of heroic spirit. And Guimingming, who was silly and licked his fingers while walking. Chapter 750. The 4 heavenly kings had gathered together. Niece, what a grand show. Murong Bo stood up, still holding a glass of wine, and looked at the several people who were walking towards him, unmoved. Although he didn't seem to be moved, Li Fan knew that Murong Bo must be angry in his heart. He was not broad-minded. Luo Shuawu's move would definitely anger this old man. Murong Bo had the strength of the best in the world, but she did not have the broad-mindedness of the best in the world. "Uncle, would you like to eat a drumstick?" Guomingming took out a drumstick from his trousers and handed it to Murong Bo. Guomingming was absolutely kind, but Murong Bo did not think so. Yi Jian's people were here to humiliate her. "Today is my birthday banquet. Niece, you brought people here to make trouble. You are not giving me face." "How can that be? You are a leading figure in the martial arts world, and I am just a junior in the martial arts world and your niece. I still have to give you face." Luo Shuawu stood there, and she was also the focus of the audience. The White Queen Luo Shuawu and the leader of the martial arts world, Murong Ying. The two great beauties in the martial arts world gathered together, which really made the Dragon and Phoenix Hall more glorious. Many men murmured in their hearts, "Who do you think is better? These two beauties are both superb and stunning. Since you are here to celebrate my birthday, find a place to sit down." Murong Bo held back her temper and was still looking for a way out for everyone. However, Yi Jian was not so easy to get rid of, especially Luo Shuo. She had just been released from the ice, and she was always holding back her anger. She was ready to do something big. "Come, bring up Yi Jian's birthday gift." Luo Shuawu clapped her hands, and 4 disciples of Yi Jian immediately came from behind. The 4 people carried a sedan chair with a turtle statue on it. "This is the longevity turtle. I wish you a long life and longevity as long as heaven," Luo Shuawu said loudly. Everyone's expressions changed. This so-called longevity tortoise didn't sound good at all. "Niece, I see that you've become much bolder and more temperamental now that you've become the leader of this alliance." Murong Bo finally couldn't hold it anymore. He frowned and slammed the small glass into the table in front of him. After the Heaven Alliance, there were some so-called alliance conferences. But everyone knows that I, Murong Bo, have never put these pesky league conferences in my eyes. But I, Murong, gave them some face, but they didn't give me face. Then don't blame me, Murong, for being heartless. "Uncle, you always like to beat around the bush." Luo Shuewu was unmoved. She looked at the supreme martial artist in front of her and said, "We are all people of Jianghu. If you have something to say, just say it. Why do you have to beat around the bush?" The surrounding people were already whispering to each other. Were they going to start a fight? The relationship between Murong Bo and the 4 major alliances had always been very stiff. In the past, the 4 major alliances would give Murong some face. But today, it seemed that it had reached a critical point. Murong Bo didn't continue to say anything. Instead, he gave a look to the side. At this time, a handsome man in soft armor who had been sitting next to him stood up. "Luo Shuewu, don't be too presumptuous." Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. This man was an expert of the White Tiger Hall of the Central Plains. His name was Wei Jun. This Wei Jun was also a general-level expert of the White Tiger Hall. He was usually a man of few words, but today he took the initiative to speak. How strange. Everyone looked at Wei Jun, waiting to hear what he was going to say next. The enemy of the 4 major alliances is the devil cult. Wei Jun didn't disappoint and continued, "Naturally, we should join forces to fight against the enemy together." And what kind of person is Villa Master Murong? He led the elites of Murong Villa to fight against the devil cult. We will naturally surround him and do our best. What a nice way to put it. Luo Shuewu nodded. To put it nicely, we're called thugs. To put it bluntly, we're called dogs. Luo Shuewu, you're too presumptuous. Wei Jun's expression turned stern. The true energy in his body erupted, and his hair stood on end. Could it be that you want the 4 major alliances to start a war? Start a war? Sure. Luo Shuewu didn't show any fear. "I, the hero of Yi Jian, am unparalleled in the world. When have I ever been afraid of anyone? Your White Tiger Hall of the Central Plains has been the accomplice of a villain. You've been a dog for Murong Bo for so many years, and you've hidden so deeply. Now it's time to jump out and bite people for him." Luo Shuewu, what do you mean by that? Without waiting for Wei Jun to speak, Murong Bo was already somewhat angry. Are you declaring war on me? Rongbo. Luo Shuewu's voice rose by an octave. She looked at the leading figure of the martial arts world opposite her with anger in her eyes. Last time you sent people to capture 2 of my disciples and used them to practice. Do you think I, Yi Jian, can't find out? It's time for us to settle this score now. Luo Shuewu's words caused a great uproar. Murongbo caught people of Yi Jian to practice? For so many years, there were indeed some martial arts masters who inexplicably disappeared in Jianghu. But weren't they all killed by the people of the devil cult? Nonsense. Murongbo roared angrily. Luo Shu, you've made a big fuss. How dare you pour such black water on me? What are your intentions? You should ask the devil cult if you, Yi Jian, have lost any masters. Why are you asking me, Murongbo? Villa Master Murong, you know best in your heart whether you did it or not. As Luo Shuewu spoke, she glanced at Li Fan. Li Fan, young hero Li. This family is a group of deceiving people. Do you want to marry them? Li Fan was speechless now. He looked at Luo Shuewu and couldn't say a word. Although he really didn't like Murongbo, this old dog, it was naturally not Luo Shuewu's turn to decide who he wanted to fall in love with and marry. Li Fan, to think that I thought you were a little heroic. Jin Jiama looked at Li Fan and snorted coldly. Now it seems that you are also a person who tries to curry favor with the powerful. That's enough. Murong Ying finally spoke. No matter what the reason is, if you want to kidnap the bride, you should ask me first. Cousin, long time no see. You still have the same temper. Luo Shuewu looked at Murong Ying and said, You haven't changed either. You are still so presumptuous. Murong Ying looked at her cousin and said, If there is any grudge between us, we can solve it privately. Why do you have to involve my Murong family? Cousin, you are too naive. Luo Shuewu said, I don't know the true face of Mount Lu because I am in this mountain. I have my own eyes. I will see what the truth is. As soon as Murong Ying finished speaking, Murongbo waved her hand and said, Stop talking. People of Jianghu should do things of Jianghu. Since your Yi Jian wants to start a war with my Murong villa, let's see who is better. As Murongbo spoke, the true energy in her body surged again. However, Li Fan stood up and silently walked between Murongbo and Luo Shu, stopping her. Murong Ying frowned. This Li Fan finally couldn't sit still. Chapter 751. Under everyone's gaze, Li Fan stood in front of Murongbo. Everyone stared at him, intending to see what this man was going to do. Although he was the little tyrant with his current strength, it was still too early for him to fight against the supreme martial artist, Murongbo. Li Fan, now that you have grown up, do you want to be the enemy of my Murong family? The great elder stared at Li Fan and shouted with a strong front. But Li Fan shook his head. Li Fan, get lost. Murongbo also scolded, but Li Fan shook his head again. He just didn't speak. Everyone didn't know what he was going to do. Can you say something? The great elder looked at Li Fan angrily, but Li Fan didn't speak. Li Fan temporarily lost his voice, unable to speak, just stood there. It seems that today, you are going to protect these people of leaning on the sword and laughing at the breeze? After living with him for so long, Murong Ying already understood some of Li Fan's thoughts. She asked on behalf of Li Fan. Li Fan nodded. Good. Murongbo actually nodded. Dare to protect the enemy in front of me, you have some guts. A mere Li Fan also dares to be presumptuous in front of Villa Master Murong. A strong man stood up. I am the leader of Murong Villa's 5-Dragon Gate. Villa Master Murong, there is no need for you to beat him up, let me do it. He was about 40 years old, his temples were bulging at first glance, one could tell that he had achieved great success in inner force. Among the martial artists, although it was not the older one was, the higher the inner force was. But the older one was, the more profound the inner force was. This was normal. Li Fan didn't speak, just stood there motionlessly. At this time, the 5-Dragon sect leader got the tacit approval. He leaped up and slapped down at Li Fan. Li Fan stood there, unmoved. Just like that, he looked on helplessly as the five dragon sect master jumped in front of him. But just as the gate master's palm was about to land on Li Fan's forehead, Li Fan suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed the gate master's arm. He swung his arm and grabbed the sect master's arm. Borrowing his strength, he smashed the sect master to the ground. Bang! The sect leader was smashed until he was dizzy. Li Fan added another punch and knocked him out. Everyone was stunned. Although the sect master of the five dragon gates was not very famous in the Jianghu, his skills were still obvious to all. How could an expert at the peak of perfection be killed in an instant? Li Fan, this young junior, actually had such strength? Impossible. How did this person practice martial arts? His progress was too fast. Sure enough, his wings have hardened. Murong's eyes narrowed. Jiang Feng, it's been a year. Now is the time. Come on. Jiang Feng took a few steps forward steadily and stood in the middle of the banquet hall, facing Li Fan. At this time, Li Fan was no longer the young man from a year ago. He had grown quite a bit now. He was 1.79 meters tall, close to 1.8 meters. Jiang Feng was 1.81 meters tall, a little taller than Li Fan, but not by much. The two of them were almost at the same level. Jiang Feng looked at Li Fan and smiled. The original 1 year has passed, but it's been a long time. It's been almost 2 years. There was something indescribable in Jiang Feng's eyes. In these 2 years, you've grown a lot, and I'm not bad either. Today, we'll see who's better. Li Fan still didn't speak and just nodded his head. After that, he took a step back and made a gesture. He looked at Jiang Feng and made a please gesture. Jiang Feng put one hand behind his back, and the other pointed at Li Fan, extending 2 fingers. Acupoint hand. This was a martial art passed down in Jiang Feng's family. Now that it had been trained by Murong, it should have become a lot more powerful. Li Fan kicked the chair next to him. The chair rolled and flew, heading straight for Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng didn't retreat at all. He even took a step forward and poked the chair with 2 fingers. Bang! The chair was smashed. Jiang Feng looked at Li Fan in front of him with a little pride in his eyes. Don't look down on me. Use your full strength. Jiang Feng said. Otherwise, it would be boring, wouldn't it? Li Fan bounced his feet and executed the monkey steps, instantly appearing behind Jiang Feng. However, Jiang Feng didn't turn his head and directly poked with his right hand. Li Fan stretched out his palm and blocked. His palm contained true qi and was like steel, but it still hurt from Jiang Feng's 2 fingers. However, Jiang Feng found an opportunity and continued to poke with his fingers, aiming for Li Fan's vital points. Li Fan used the crane hand and kept slapping away Jiang Feng's fingers. Jiang Feng used his right hand, and Li Fan only used his right hand as well. His left hand was in his pocket. The two of them were like performing acrobatics, one attacking and the other defending, dazzling the crowd and making them unable to take it all in. Both of them were rarely seen young talents. With their strength, they would be the mainstays of a great sect in the pugilistic world. They might even be the future successors of the sect leader. However, these 2 people were born in the Murong family. It was truly enviable. Look at how many young experts were born in the Murong family. There was already a Murong Ing in the family, and there was still Jiang Feng and Li Fan outside. Murong Villa was the #1 family in the pugilistic world. There was definitely a reason why they could become the #1 family in the pugilistic world. If Murong Ing and the others grew up, perhaps, in the pugilistic world, there would no longer be a match for Murong Villa. Terrifying. Fortunately, they had internal strife. It was probably because of this reason that many people were secretly supporting the smiling sword breeze. Li Fan's palm was already faintly numb. At this time, he began to miss Subhuti. If only this guy was here. This guy's invincible golden body was just right to deal with Jiang Feng's acupoint. Jiang Feng suddenly extended his other hand and attacked Li Fan, displaying the acupoint to the extreme. Jiang Feng's hands struck out again and again, as though he was tearing the air apart, creating a series of wind-breaking sounds. And Li Fan also took out his left hand from his pocket, displaying the crane's hand to the extreme, clashing with Jiang Feng's acupoint. The two people's martial arts were really powerful. The banquet hall was filled with violent gusts of wind. Many of the pugilistic world's juniors were mesmerized watching. If only they were half as powerful as them. The two people continued to attack and defend. For a moment, the two of them were unable to determine the winner. But at this time, Jiang Feng's eyes flashed a trace of complacency. Li Fan seemed to sense that something was wrong. At this time, Jiang Feng's leg kicked straight at Li Fan's lower abdomen. Shadowless kick. When Jiang Feng kicked, his shoulder did not move at all. It was impossible to see that he had any intention of kicking. This was the real shadowless kick. Li Fan's internal organs were injured. He took a step back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 752. Hee, seems like you are just SOSO for the past 2 years. Jiang Feng could not help but ridicule. Seems like I trained hard for 2 years in vain. It's too easy to win against you. With that, he continued to poke with his fingers, and at the same time, took the opportunity to kick. Li Fan's crane hand was already barely able to defend against the acupuncture point, and it was basically impossible to defend against Jiang Feng's kick. Especially when Jiang Feng's kicks were all shadowless kicks, and every time he kicked, Li Fan did not even have time to prepare. It was every martial artist's reflex to sense the opponent's habit of sparring. Even if Li Fan knew that he should go against his reflex, he could not do it. Li Fan suddenly retreated 3 steps, and then both of his hands were at his waist, and he pushed forward. Dragon Spitting Pearl. Li Fan's hands pushed out 2 chi pearls, and the 2 chi pearls intertwined in the air, forming an even stronger chi pearl, and went straight for Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng frowned. He did not expect Li Fan to have such a method. He poked the chi pearl with 2 fingers, and the pearl immediately exploded. Rumble! The strong pressure directly pushed Jiang Feng's body out, and in the blink of an eye, he fell more than 5 meters away. Jiang Feng was in a sorry state, and there was a lot of dust on his clothes. He frowned and looked at Li Fan, his eyes slightly complicated. It seems like I've underestimated you. Li Fan did not say anything. Why are you not saying anything? Are you looking down on me? Jiang Feng frowned. He seemed to be in a bad mood, but Li Fan still did not say anything. You brat, you have guts. Jiang Feng was angry. He suddenly leaped forward, and both of his hands poked towards Li Fan. His speed increased by a few notches. But Li Fan was already prepared. He crossed his arms, and the great war god popped out from his back, not giving Jiang Feng any chance to get close to him. The great war god's arms were very long, and with one slap, Jiang Feng was sent flying. Jiang Feng raised his head and frowned at the tall great war god. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. What is this thing? Could the release of true chi achieve such an effect? Could it be that it was turning nothingness into reality? No, turning nothingness into reality should be a more realistic effect. For example, Murong Ying's cherry blossom sword aura was so real. Great war god, I've heard of him before. Jiang Feng had also inquired about Li Fan's actual situation. Knowing that you have such a kung fu, I have long been prepared. As Jiang Feng spoke, he took 2 steps back, out of the range of the wargod's attack. At the same time, his body began to circulate true chi, then exploded, and then condensed again, forming a coat that covered his body. Gathering chi in essence. Li Fan's eyes lit up. This Jiang Feng actually learned Long Tang's moves. Interesting. In an instant, Jiang Feng's strength had increased immeasurably. He pointed 2 fingers at Li Fan from a distance. Li Fan almost subconsciously tilted his forehead. Something brushed past his forehead and hit the pillar behind him. Boom! A hole was directly hit on the pillar. Light shone through the hole and shone on Li Fan's face. After the gathering chi in essence, this guy's acupuncture point hand could even hit people through the air. Awesome! Li Fan could not help but praise Jiang Feng. He was indeed a respectable opponent. Watch this match. Luo Xuewu reminded the 4 heavenly kings, it will benefit you a lot. In fact, there was no need for her to remind them. Every martial arts expert was watching this kind of battle without blinking. This kind of battle was too rare to see. After the gathering qi and essence, Jiang Feng became even more powerful. The acupuncture point hand he used could no longer be seen, it was as fast as lightning. However, Li Fan also retracted the great war god and turned it into a golden armor. Wearing it on his body, he was actually able to forcibly block Jiang Feng's attack. However, a finger mark appeared on his true qi armor. It would not be long before it was broken. I have seen your golden armor. It won't be long before it will be broken. Jiang Feng was full of confidence. He did not know that the battle between the two had already dazzled the eyes of the surrounding people. Only Murong Bo did not put these two people's martial arts in his eyes. After all, he was the supreme martial artist. The martial arts of these two people were not worth mentioning to him. Jiang Feng, directly use your unique skill. Murong Bo ordered. Yes, master. Jiang Feng responded, and then the brilliance on his body became a bit brighter. The original silver-white brilliance suddenly turned black. And Jiang Feng's pair of pupils also turned blood red. One with the heart and demon. Li Fan understood that this was Jiang Feng's real strength. One of the three great martial arts talents, one with the heart and demon. Humph! Jiang Feng looked at Li Fan and suddenly snorted. A terrible murderous aura burst out from his body, and his figure disappeared instantly. The hair on Li Fan's back trembled. He almost subconsciously lay down on the ground. Bang! A burst of air exploded above Li Fan's head. Jiang Feng's two fingers missed, and the air in front of him directly exploded. If these two fingers were to poke Li Fan's body, his body would probably be poked with two huge bloody holes. Li Fan supported himself with both hands on the ground, and with a spirit toad soar, he jumped to the ceiling. His feet sucked on the ceiling and he hung upside down. He looked at Jiang Feng solemnly. Jiang Feng's ability was indeed strong. He could fuse with his own heart demon, and there were no side effects. Chapter 753. Activating the Divine Dragon General Stance, Li Fan once again suppressed Jiang Feng. However, after Jiang Feng activated the heart and demon unity, his body's endurance was strengthened once again. After being attacked by Li Fan so many times, although he suffered some injuries, the pain was greatly reduced. He could still push away the surrounding stones as if nothing happened and walked towards Li Fan again. I underestimated you. Jiang Feng looked at Li Fan opposite him. Not only him, but everyone was looking at Li Fan. At this time, this young man's combat power was beyond everyone's imagination. This kind of strength was almost on the way to becoming a grandmaster. How old was he? How many years had he practiced martial arts? Was it possible to train to such an expert in such a short time? If this was possible, then how were they, the martial artists who had not reached the peak after training for decades, going to live? Wouldn't it be looking for a big stone to kill themselves? Li Fan still did not say a word. He just stood there and stretched out his hand to Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng's feet bounced and instantly appeared in front of Li Fan. At the same time, two fingers poked at Li Fan's eyebrows. As fast as lightning, Li Fan leaned to one side, and the ground was poked out a hole. At the same time, he stretched out his right hand and grabbed Jiang Feng's wrist. Subdue bear. With a grappling skill, Li Fan grabbed Jiang Feng's body and smashed him to the ground. But Jiang Feng was unmoved. He raised his other hand and used two fingers to dig into Li Fan's eyes. Li Fan hurriedly stepped back to avoid being poked blind. And his following killer move was also forced to stop. He could only watch Jiang Feng stand up again with cold eyes. Jiang Feng adjusted his state and re-examined Li Fan. Jiang Feng seemed to be thinking about what kind of attack Li Fan had. This was the first time he saw this divine dragon general stance. And Li Fan's body was already covered with golden armor, defending against Jiang Feng's sneak attack in all directions. Jiang Feng, take this. Murong Bo pulled out his own sword and threw it to Jiang Feng on the opposite side. Jiang Feng stretched out his hand and took the sword in his hand. Thank you, master. As Jiang Feng spoke, he raised his sword and aimed it at Li Fan. I'm sorry, Li Fan. My real killer move is actually the Murong sword technique. As he spoke, Jiang Feng swung his sword, and the sword chi instantly flew up, slicing towards Li Fan along the ground. Li Fan's right foot suddenly swung out, and like a battle axe, it directly split apart the sword energy. Umph! Li Fan snorted coldly to express his disdain, but 2 streaks of crimson sword energy suddenly came toward him. This sword chi contained demonic chi, making it even more powerful. Li Fan frowned. He immediately drew out his extraordinary sword from his waist and shook it into a black sword. He threw the sword, and the black sword turned into a black light, instantly piercing through the opponent's sword chi. Dang! Jiang Feng swung his sword again, and the long sword blocked Li Fan's sword. Li Fan stretched out his hand, and the black sword that was blocked flew back into Li Fan's hand. Li Fan threw the long sword in front of him, and separated his hands. 7 golden sword images were separated. Yo, 7-star sword. Seeing Li Fan's sword technique, Night Rain Tower's eyes lit up. However, Li Fan's 7-star sword looked even more domineering, as if it contained his special chi. Jiang Feng threw out more sword chi and again, destroyed Li Fan's sword images. But when the smoke dispersed, a black sword was floating above his head. Jiang Feng was shocked. Even if he did not feel pain, he still felt fear. He knew this move, God-slaying. If Li Fan's lightning struck him, he would really be happy. Jiang Feng wanted to dodge, but a lightning bolt had already struck down from the sword. Jiang Feng did not dare to be negligent. He held the sword, which contained his scarlet chi, and collided with Li Fan's golden lightning bolt. Bang! The entire banquet hall trembled. The power of the 2 quickly spread out, forming a ripple, and in the blink of an eye, it spread extremely far. All the martial artists present had no choice but to use their chi to protect their bodies. And the walls of the hall were completely smashed. Fortunately, the ceiling had already been smashed, otherwise, at this moment, everyone would have been crushed to the ground by the collapsed ceiling. Li Fan and Jiang Feng separated far away, and the 2 of them stood on a street lamp in the courtyard. Li Fan stood there, and the extraordinary sword floated in front of him. Jiang Feng stepped on the street lamp, holding Murong Bo's sword with both hands, and stared at Li Fan. The 2 of them did not hide their strength, and both of them used their true strength to compete. Jiang Feng was shocked at Li Fan's growth. In just 2 short years, he, a martial arts layman, could actually grow to such a high level. As for Li Fan, he was also very surprised. Was Murong Bo so powerful? He had just beaten Jiang Feng up, but after receiving his devilish training, he actually improved so much. The 2 of them looked at each other, waiting for the other to make the first move, and then looking for the other's flaws. Sometimes, the first to make a move would not win. Whoever made the first move would reveal a flaw. Li Fan was not stupid, he was waiting for an opportunity. Everyone present was a martial artist, so they naturally knew the rules of the martial arts competition. Therefore, they did not say a word, and waited for the 2 of them to decide who was better. Time was also slipping away minute by minute, and because Li Fan and Jiang Feng were in their strongest state, their true chi was also rapidly being consumed. If this went on, it would not only be a competition of patience, but also internal strength. Jiang Feng's heart and demon unity seemed to consume more energy. He finally could not hold it in any longer, and directly carried his sword. His entire body turned into a sword light, and swept towards Li Fan. This move, Li Fan felt as if he had seen it before. Li Fan hurriedly jumped up and into the air. And the street lamp under him had already been cut into 2 in an instant. Jiang Feng landed on the ground, glanced at Li Fan, and then with a bounce of his body, turned into a black and red sword light, and flew straight towards Li Fan in the air. Swallow 3 splashes. Li Fan's body shifted in the air, and narrowly avoided Jiang Feng's sword light. However, the front of Li Fan's clothes was cut open. This sword light was very powerful. Li Fan used Thousand Caddy Fall, and landed back on the ground. He turned his head to look for Jiang Feng above him. But at this moment, Jiang Feng ran to God knows where, and disappeared without a trace, as if he was hiding in the dark, waiting to sneak attack Li Fan. Li Fan filled his surroundings with true qi, forming a 3-meter radius around him. This way, he could feel the surrounding true qi and could temporarily act as a radar. But Jiang Feng's speed was too fast. Only then did Li Fan's true qi feel the fluctuation. He dodged in a sorry state, but the golden armor on his left arm had already cracked, and a stream of blood spurted out. Li Fan sealed the blood vessels on his arm, endured the pain, and frowned, continuing to look for traces of Jiang Feng. Chapter 754. Jiang Feng even hid his aura. It was as if his entire person had disappeared. Li Fan frowned. This Jiang Feng is playing a good trick. Murong Villa is extremely big. If he is hiding there, it will be very difficult for me to find him. This time, Li Fan will lose for sure. Zhan Shaoan sighed. This Jiang Feng is too good at hiding, he even hid his aura. As long as he continuously attacks Li Fan from the dark, Li Fan will definitely lose. Yeah, this Jiang Feng is so powerful, he actually knows heart and demon unity. Jiang Feng has one of the 3 great martial arts talents. It is really enviable. Jin Jima is also the same. She is watching the battle with a little jealousy. If only she also has a martial arts talent. For example, Li Fan knows abnormality bone changing. This talent is really too important for a martial artist who practices form and will martial arts. Li Fan's true qi domain is not very effective. He can only barely avoid a few attacks. In a short while, he has already been attacked 3 to 4 times. If it was not for Li Fan's strong healing ability, he would have already been lying on the ground. This battle is undoubtedly a bitter one for Li Fan. Night Rain Tower put his hands in his sleeves and sighed. He will lose for sure. Zhan Shaotian sighed. In a martial arts competition, it is a big taboo to not be able to find the opponent. And Li Fan suddenly raised his extraordinary sword. 7 enlarged sword images suddenly appeared in the air, quickly falling down, nailing around him, forming a circle. They encircled Li Fan. These 7 sword images, each as tall as Li Fan, are like 7 doors. Li Fan stood in the middle, holding the extraordinary sword, eyes closed, like an old monk in meditation. A sword light suddenly appeared behind him, seemingly wanting to pass through the 2 sword images. But the 2 swords suddenly trembled. Li Fan turned around and slashed. Clang. The extraordinary sword struck the sword light, and Jiang Feng's figure was sent flying. And at this moment, 7 sword shadows suddenly leaped out, chasing after Jiang Feng's figure, slashing his body in succession. Bang bang bang. 7 wounds appeared on Jiang Feng's body in a row. His body flashed again and he disappeared in front of Li Fan. He actually blocked it. Tsugumi was shocked. It was just luck. Night Rain Tower saw it clearly. Just now, Li Fan used the 7-star sword qi to sense the existence of the opponent's sword qi. However, Jiang Feng will learn his lesson after this. A few more sword lights and Li Fan's body won't be able to take it. However, Zhan Shaotian wasn't optimistic about Li Fan. He's about to lose. In the end, he lacks the guidance of a famous teacher and lacks battle experience. There's no way he can fight against Murong Bo's disciple. As soon as his words fell, Li Fan suddenly used Cloud Ladder Leap and directly jumped into the sky, jumping 100 meters high in the sky. He hung upside down in midair, looking down at the multitude of living beings below. Jiang Feng's sword light needed impact force, and with such a distance, Jiang Feng couldn't use his sword light. If he used his movement technique to rise into the sky, he wouldn't be able to use his sword light attack. Li Fan used the force of rising into the sky and quietly looked down. At this moment, Li Fan's eyes contained powerful qi, like the eyes of an eagle. Everyone's jinqi was clearly visible. Different people had different colors. Li Fan quickly found the owner of the scarlet qi, Jiang Feng. This guy was actually hiding in the crowd. No wonder he couldn't find him. Li Fan glared at them. His aura was astonishing, as if he was driving them away. If it was someone else being so fierce, no one would care. But now it was Li Fan. With Li Fan's words, The people sitting there immediately began to flee, afraid that they would be affected by the battle between the two. There were still some who didn't believe in Li Fan's strength, and they curled their lips. What's the use of jumping so high, pretending that you can fly? That's right, a pain-in-the-ass man will leave just because he said something? Ignore him. Those people didn't have any intention of leaving, but Li Fan didn't stand on ceremony either. In midair, he directly pressed down with his palm. Dragon King's seal. Boom. A huge dragon claw mark appeared on the ground. Jiang Feng was pressed to the ground, half kneeling there, unable to stand up. As for those guests who didn't leave obediently, they were also pressed to the ground, unable to move, and blood began to burst out from their bodies. The strength of the 7th level, Dragon Divine General, Dragon King Seal. The huge palm wind pressed everyone there unconscious, except for Jiang Feng. He half knelt there, carrying heavy pressure on his body. But he withstood the crimson true energy, and stood up bit by bit. Li Fan was falling towards the ground, and the other party also raised his head, looking at Li Fan above his head. Li Fan's palm pressure had completely dissipated. Jiang Feng lifted Murong Bo's long sword, and once again turned into a crimson sword light, facing Li Fan above his head, and directly charged up. This time, Li Fan was unmoved. He suddenly stretched out both hands, and both hands clamped down fiercely. Catching a naked blade with bare hands, Li Fan was luring Jiang Feng to face it head-on. This way, with his eyesight, he could catch Jiang Feng's sword in an instant. When Jiang Feng saw that his sword had been caught, he was taken aback. Jiang Feng frowned, clearly very shocked. His peerless devil sword was actually blocked? And empty-handed? How was that possible? Jiang Feng thought that he had seen wrongly, but in reality he was still weaker than Li Fan. With his sword taken, Jiang Feng had no way to use sword light for a moment. But Li Fan opened his mouth, and instantly roared. Fierce tiger roar. The roar was like thunder, tearing Jiang Feng's eardrums, and Jiang Feng screamed in pain. And Li Fan grabbed the treasured sword with both hands, and then kicked Jiang Feng's face. Bang! Jiang Feng was kicked back to the ground heavily, and there were traces of electricity on his body, all caused by Li Fan's rushing thunder kick. And while Li Fan was still in midair as he fell, the great god of war popped out from behind him. Li Fan's body did not move, but the great god of war's arms opened up, and on top of his hands, there was a huge amount of true energy. 7 brilliance, absolute kill, great wisdom king. The great god of war's hands suddenly clapped together, and then heavily clapped together. Rumble. True energy crazily poured out, and hit Jiang Feng's body. A deep pit was formed on the ground, and Li Fan followed the force of the fall, and fell into the pit. Jiang Feng was already buried in the dust, and he looked very miserable. This time, it was Jiang Feng who had lost. Li Fan pulled Jiang Feng out, and the state of heart and demon unification had already dissipated. He casually threw Jiang Feng to the side, and Jiang Feng slowly climbed up, and his mouth spat out blood. Li Fan looked at Murong in front of him, and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Chapter 755. Murong Bo's face was now very ugly. He thought that Jiang Feng would be able to defeat Li Fan in seconds after his training and enlightenment. But now, he actually lost to this annoying son-in-law of his. Murong Bo was a very protective person. If it was someone from Murong's family, even if it was just a collateral relative, Murong Bo was not afraid that he would become stronger. Because they were all from the same family, the strength of the family was naturally the strength of the family. But Li Fan, Jiang Feng, they were all not the same. Jiang Feng was his disciple. Even if he was the last disciple, his surname was not Murong. As for Li Fan, it was even worse. There was a simple saying that a son-in-law was equivalent to half a son. That was all nonsense. Son-in-laws and whatnot, they were all people who came to snatch his daughter and family property. Murong Ying was his precious daughter. If she wanted to marry, it should be a noble young master with a matching family background. How could it be Li Fan, this kind of grassroots kid? He thought that Jiang Feng and Li Fan would kill each other, But Jiang Feng was also a last disciple. He couldn't lose his face, so he had to let him win. In the end, this time, Jiang Feng actually lost his face again and lost to Li Fan. Shameful. It was really too shameful. How could such a guy be his disciple? If it wasn't for the fact that he had the talent of heart and demon unity, he would have long expelled him from the sect. Worthy of being the person that my daughter fancied, you do have some strength. As Murongbo said, he suddenly stretched out his hand and pushed out a palm. Li Fan felt a strong wind pressure on his body. Li Fan's body was instantly hit and flew out more than 10 meters away before he could stabilize his footsteps. He raised his head and looked at Murongbo opposite him with some shock. This old fellow had such a powerful force with just one palm strike. This was his full strength? No, he might still be hiding his strength. As an expert of a generation, his strength must be unfathomable. If Imperial Concubine Zhou had used her full strength at that time, she might have already killed him. These Grandmaster-level old fellows were indeed abnormal. His fiancée was already one step away from becoming a Grandmaster. Now, he was really a little envious of her. If he had started practicing martial arts from the age of 4 or 5, things might have been different. Although Li Fan was repelled, he did not admit defeat. In a martial arts competition, whoever admitted defeat first would be the first to lose half the battle. No matter how strong you are, remember, this is Murong's house. Murong reminded Li Fan, everything is based on the will of the Murong family. I'll ask you one last time, are you still going to protect Yi Jian's people? Li Fan felt his throat tremble. He could finally speak. Father-in-law. Li Fan cupped his hands and said, originally, there were some things that I shouldn't say on your birthday. But now, it seems like I have to say it. I have a deep relationship with Yi Jian, so this time, I must protect them. Heh, a deep relationship with Yi Jian? Have you forgotten that you are the son-in-law of my Murong family? So what if I am the son-in-law of the Murong family? Don't I have my own freedom? Li Fan smiled and said calmly, don't forget, in the battle with Jiang Feng I won. You should at least give me face and let Yi Jian's friends leave safely, right? Young hero Li, don't worry about us. Luo Xuewu said heroically, this time, we came to seek justice from Villa Master Murong. If we don't get justice, we won't go back. Did you hear that? Murong sneered, you help them, but they might not necessarily give you face. Li Fan, you have been standing with outsiders and going against my Murong family. I want to ask, do you still have any place for my daughter in your heart? I and Murong naturally treat each other with respect. Li Fan said without hesitation, but it doesn't mean that I am Murong family's slave. As soon as Li Fan said this, the surrounding guests began to suck in a breath of cold air. His words meant that he had divided his position with Murong family. Murong looked at Li Fan coldly. Li Fan, you think that you are amazing because you have an extraordinary escort agency and are called the Little Tyrant, right? Let me tell you, everything you have is built on the foundation of Murong family. Without Murong family, you are nothing. I, Li Fan, have a clear conscience. Li Fan didn't have the slightest fear. He stood there and said in a dignified manner, Father-in-law, you said that you have never caught Yi Jian's men. Then I also want to ask you, what kind of martial art did you catch those devil cult disciples to practice? Murong frowned deeply and looked at Li Fan. Li Fan, what nonsense are you talking about? Li Fan, never lie. Li Fan asked bluntly, but I saw it with my own eyes that day. Murong, you controlled the White Tiger Hall of the Central Plains and caught those devil cult disciples for you. What kind of martial art did you practice? Well, it seems that you are on the same side as Yi Jian. Murong Bo shot back at Li Fan. What benefits did Yi Jian give you to make you live off him while secretly helping an outsider? It seems that you have been bribed by Luo Xuewu's beauty. You are indeed a lecher. My daughter has been deceived by you until now. It is time for her to wake up. Murong Ying stood there. It was hard for her to speak and her expression was very ugly. However, although you are careful, my Murong family is a gentleman. Li Fan, I will ask you one last time. This is your last chance. Murong glared at Li Fan and asked coldly, Are you on Yi Jian's side or on my Murong family's side? If it is Murong family's side, then I will treat your words and actions as nonsense after drinking too much and won't lower myself to your level. You are still my Murong family's son-in-law. From now on, you will be a proper person and won't pursue this matter with you. But if you stand on Yi Jian's side, then from now on, you are no longer my Murong family's son-in-law but my Murong family's enemy. Murong Ying instantly became nervous. She understood Li Fan's temper the best. This sentence was enough to know how Li Fan should answer. Everyone looked at Li Fan as if they were waiting for this youth's answer. Was he obedient or was he a proud youth? Murong's villa or Yi Jian, he had to choose one. If he was a smart person, he would definitely choose Murong's villa. After all, this was the #1 villa in the martial arts world. It was many times stronger than Yi Jian, who had the weakest wealth and manpower among the 4 major alliances. Only a fool would choose Yi Jian. Luo Shuowu also looked at Li Fan. For the first time, she felt nervous. She was also waiting for Li Fan's answer. What would he choose? If he was smart, he would definitely not choose Yi Jian. The hope was really very slim. For a moment, everyone's eyes were on Li Fan. Chapter 756. Li Fan's choice was very important, and it would have a great impact on his future life. If he chose the wrong step, it would be very difficult for him to walk in the future. On one side was friendship, and on the other side was the future. How should Li Fan choose? Murong Ying and Luo Shuowu both looked at Li Fan nervously. They were even more nervous than Li Fan. Murong Ying was afraid that Li Fan would choose the E-sword, and Luo Shuowu tried her best to make Li Fan join the E-sword. She even did not hesitate to fall out with Murong Villa, just to wait for this moment. At this time, Li Fan became the focus of the whole audience. Murong Ying stood on the side of Murong Villa, and Luo Shuowu stood on the side of the E-sword. The 2 women were cousins, and both of them had a prideful character. But at this moment, almost all of them stretched out their hands to Li Fan. Li Fan looked around. At this moment, it was impossible to say that he was not in a dilemma. But Li Fan's final choice was unchanged. He took 2 steps to the right and stood next to Luo Shuowu. Murong Ying's eyes were a little empty. Murong Love was a little presumptuous and directly shouted, "Brother-in-law, how can you choose them?" She was a little anxious. "Then I want to go with you." What kind of personality did Murong Love have? She usually pretended to be a good girl, but at this moment, she could not hide it. But Murong Ying reached out and held Murong Love. Murong Love was just about to shout when Murong Ying hit the back of her neck and made her faint temporarily. This was Murong Villa. No matter what they did, they could not lose the face of the Murong family. This was the responsibility that they should bear as members of the Murong family. This was especially true for Murong Ying, who was the future head of Murong Manor. She could not afford to reveal her feelings here. Children talk about friendship, while adults talk about responsibility. That was the difference. I knew you would choose them. Murong transmitted her voice to Li Fan. Li Fan frowned and looked at the head of Murong Villa. From today onwards, Murong Villa, Yi Jian, and Phenomenal Escort Agency will be sworn enemies. Murong Weibo announced, whoever is close to Fifen Escort Agency and Yi Jian will be the enemy of Murong Villa. Murong Bo was the supreme of the pugilistic world, while Murong Ying was the chief of the pugilistic world. His one sentence was equivalent to giving the order to kill Li Fan and Luo Shuowu. From now on, Li Fan would probably be isolated by the people of Jianghu. Whoosh! Many golden-robed guards walked out from both sides. These were the guards of the Murong family. Each of them pulled out a long sword in their hands and pointed it at Li Fan and the others. They were the target of public criticism. "Thank you for choosing me." Luo Shuowu also pulled out her long sword. There was a trace of cold light on the sword. From today onwards, I will be your strongest support. Don't misunderstand. Li Fan didn't turn his head. He looked at the people of Murong Villa in front of him. I didn't choose you. I just hate Murong Bo, Brotherly, didn't you choose here because you like me, Chief Luo? Knight Rain Tower stood beside Li Fan and asked him with his hands still in his sleeves. Luo Shuewu needs me just for Yijian. Li Fan said lightly, and Murong Ing needs me because she likes me. Although he felt guilty to Murong Ing, he couldn't always stand under Murong Bo, listen to his orders, and look up to his breath. Li Fan knew that he had to take this step sooner or later. To establish his own sect, he had to cut off all relations with Murong Bo. Sometimes, he had to make a choice. Yijian's people actually caused trouble on this occasion. They are really unworthy of being the model of Jianghu. Wei Jun led a group of elites of the White Tiger Hall of the Central Plains out of the crowd. Behind him were 8 guard-level soldiers of the White Tiger Hall of the Central Plains. Each of them was wearing silver armor and holding a big spear. They all operated the Divine Heaven Soldier Kung Fu and adjusted their strength to the strongest, ready to fight at any moment. The 4 heavenly kings of Yijian were also ready, as if they were facing a great enemy. Murong Bo sneered. Luo Shuowu, do you think you can escape from my villa with just the few of you? Of course I don't dare to underestimate this villa. Luo Shuowu said frankly, so, I've prepared other means. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and pointed to the river in the distance. Villa Master Murong, look over there. For the sake of geomancy and beauty, the vast Song River was not far from Murong Villa. At this moment, there was an antique dragon boat on the Song River with 3 sails. One of the sails was written with the name of the dragon boat, the 1,000-mile whistle. The 1,000-mile whistle, 15 dragon head cannons have been aimed at Murong Villa. Luo Shuowu crossed her arms and was full of confidence. As long as I give the order, Murong Villa will turn into a sea of fire. Uncle, I know you are powerful, but you can't save all the people in your villa alone. Luo Shuowu's words were already a threat. In order to take all the people away safely, he couldn't be a coward when it was time to be domineering. Luo Shuowu waved her sword and her voice became louder. Friends of Yijian, let's go. Luo Shuowu was ready to leave with her people, while Murong stood there with a cold face. If he let them leave safely, he would lose a lot of face. But the 1,000-mile whistle was indeed there, and the 15 dragon head cannons on it were not alarmist talk. Luo Shuowu, you are going to do it to the extreme. Murong gnashed his teeth. Villa Master Murong, you are the one who is going to do it to the extreme. Luo Shuowu didn't give in. We just want to survive. When we encounter Villa Master Murong who has a big business, we can only think of other ways to survive. The way of snakes and rats. Murong sneered. Li Fan, do you agree with such a way? It seems that you are just SOSO. Murong began to criticize Li Fan again. In some aspects, he did know Li Fan very well. Murong, what other moves do you have? Just do it. Li Fan naturally wouldn't leave in such a sorry state. The 15 dragon head cannons have nothing to do with me, Li Fan. Murong, make your move. Li Fan stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. In everyone's eyes, although he was still a teenager, he had the demeanor of a king for some reason. It was as if he wasn't a teenager who had just entered the profession, but a grandmaster like Murong. Come, take 3 palms from me first. As Murong spoke, he took 2 steps forward and raised his palm. He suddenly appeared in front of Li Fan and slapped toward Li Fan's forehead. Li Fan frowned. This palm was very powerful, and he might not be able to dodge it. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly descended from the sky and blocked in front of Li Fan, helping Li Fan to exchange a palm with Murong. Bang! The two collided and then separated. Murong raised his head and stared at the man in front of him. Who are you? Chapter 757. Who are you? Murong Bo glares at the person in front of him with anger in his eyes. Murong Bo, do you still remember me? The person smiles as he looks at Murong Bo. Murong Bo takes a step back and frowns as he looks at the man in front of him. Wang Jian, it's you? This person is none other than the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Wang Jian. In the past, Wang Jian would wear the standard black uniform of the embroidered uniform guard when he goes out. But today is different. Wang Jian is wearing a bright red coat. His entire face is smiling and his eyes are like crescent moons. He repels Murongbo with one move and even winks at him. Rumor has it that in order to master the highest realm of the small phaseless divine technique, Wang Jian cut off his future path. Murongbo looks at this commander of the embroidered uniform guard and sneers, "Seeing you today, it is indeed so." "Murongbo, you are mocking me," Wang Jian charmingly says, "but you are not much better than me." "Nonsense." Murongbo roars, "If you talk nonsense again, I will break your throat." "Yo, you are angry. Wang Jian gently claps his hands, "You are quite charming when you are angry. But your style isn't his cup of tea." "Commander Wang, I think you have completely turned into a woman. The people of Jianghu are watching." Murongbo sneers, "Why don't you let me send you to reincarnate? If I can reincarnate into a female body, it is not bad." Wang Jian stretches out his hand and takes out 3 silver needles from his sleeve. "However, in this life, there are still some things that I have not finished, so I can temporarily die." Wang Jian's voice falls and he throws out the 3 silver needles. Like 3 electric lights, they instantly fly towards Murongbo. Murongbo does not dare to be negligent. This Wang Jian is a grandmaster level character. He stretches out 2 fingers and uses Murong sword art to continuously deflect the silver needles. Dang dang dang. The 3 silver needles were constantly bounced off, but Wang Jian's movements were unpredictable. Like a drifting ghost, he instantly appeared in front of Murongbo. Wang Zong raised his right palm, and with a powerful true qi in his palm, he slapped down towards Murong's face. Murong snorted coldly and retaliated with a palm strike. The palms of the 2 men touched each other. Boom! The ground suffered a powerful impact, and a shockwave spread out. It was as if the entire world was trembling. Many people in the surroundings were sent flying by this force, unable to control themselves at all. Li Fan barely managed to stabilize his body as he looked at the 2 old monsters in surprise. At this time, Wang Jian's face was white and clean, as if he had become much younger. As for Murong, her whole body was filled with a vicious aura, the true qi in her body surged, and her clothes began to tremble. The true qi of the 2 people clashed intensely, the power collided, the stones on the ground flew upside down, and then shattered around the 2 people. The strength of these 2 people is too terrifying. Let's take this opportunity to leave. Luo Xuewu pulled Li Fan, wanting to bring him out. What the hell? Li Fan was also a little surprised. Why did this old pervert Wang Jian come, and it seemed like he saved me? Little brother Li Fan, why are you still not leaving? Wang Jian did not even turn his head as he said to Li Fan, who was behind him. Li Fan was especially embarrassed, not knowing if he should leave or stay. Let's go. Night Rain Tower pulled Li Fan. It's not good to stay here for long. Brotherly wait. Just as Li Fan was about to leave, Qin Junhua carried his heavy sword and walked towards Li Fan. Brother Qin, are you here to send me off? Li Fan asked. Qin Junhua shook his head. Then are you here to stop me? Brother Li misunderstood. Chen Junhua cupped his hands at Li Fan. This time, I am under the order of the new sect leader to go down the mountain to gain experience. After thinking about it, I decided to join Brother Li's Fifan escort agency. It should be helpful for my cultivation. My escort agency is in a bad situation now, don't you see? Li Fan smiled bitterly. Murongbo has declared me as an enemy. From now on, I'm afraid the people of Fifan escort agency will be despised by others. You and I are both martial arts addicts. Martial arts is the most important. Why should we care about what outsiders think? Li Fan nodded. If that's the case, I'll be wasting my time if I say anything more. From now on, you're my brother. As long as I have food to eat, I will not let you go hungry. We will share blessings and misfortunes together. Chen Junhua nodded and silently followed behind Li Fan, walking out of Murong Villa. Where do you think you're going? Just when Murongbo and Wang Jian were at each other's throats, Central Plains White Tiger Hall's people rushed over and blocked Li Fan's group. Shaoyun Tamao. Luo Xuewu ordered, and two of her capable subordinates immediately rushed out. Zhang Xiaoyan's palm technique was exquisite, while Jin Jiumao's mantis fist was full of killing intent. The Central Plains White Tiger Hall also had a few experts, and these experts surrounded the two people. Night Rain Tower and Guomingming protected Luo Shuowu, not letting anything happen to their leader. The 1,000-mile swoop was by the river, and as long as they boarded the ship, they could leave smoothly. None of you can escape today. Wei Jun held his bright silver spear and leaped forward. He circulated the divine heaven weapon cultivation technique, and his entire being was like a god of war as he smashed the spear down. Before Li Fan could make a move, Chen Junhua had already stepped forward. He picked up the heavy sword and brandished it above his head in a very ordinary manner. Clang. When Wei Jun touched the heavy sword, he felt a powerful force and was directly sent flying. It really came fast and left fast. Chen Junhua carried the heavy sword and followed beside Li Fan silently, making people dizzy. He was the #1 elite disciple of Mount Hua, and now he was actually following Li Fan? What a joke! What kind of charm did Li Fan have to conquer such a young talent? Seeing that Li Fan and the others were about to leave, Murong Bo's heart was burning with a ball of fire. Murong Ying, go and stop them. While Murong Bo was fighting with Wang Jian, he ordered his eldest daughter. Murong Ying was the leader of the Wulin Alliance, and she was highly skilled in martial arts. If she were to make a move, the situation of the battlefield would be settled. However, she thought for a long time and stood there hesitating for a long time. This is related to Murong's family. Don't be sentimental. Murong Bo reminded her daughter. Murong Ying sighed. She slowly walked forward, surrounded by pink cherry blossoms. At first glance, people would think that Murong Ying was a classical beauty who walked out of a painting. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Murong Ying. She was like a magnet, sucking away all the gazes. Although it's not my intention, you can't leave this door today. Chapter 758. Murong Ying points with her finger and a row of cherry blossoms flies out and floats in front of everyone. These beautiful cherry blossoms are just like Murong Ying, beautiful, beautiful but full of lethality. Murong Ying. Li Fan's true qi has also recovered a bit. He stands between the crowd and Murong Ying as he looks at his fiancée. Do you want to fight? Murong Ying does not speak and just swings her hand. More and more cherry blossoms begin to flutter, turning from illusion to reality, filled with killing intent. I understand, this is my choice. Li Fan continues to say, I will not hold back, this is an insult to you. As he speaks, he places his fists in front of him, waiting for the battle with Murong Ying. He has already activated the Divine Dragon General State, constantly activating his Dantian and squeezing out the true qi in his body. The heartbeat in his body starts to accelerate. Normally, when Li Fan cultivates inner force, his heartbeat is very slow. When it comes to exertion, his heartbeat will accelerate like an accelerating motor. At this moment, Li Fan's heartbeat is very fast. The blood in his body seems to be boiling. Although he is mentally tired, along with the acceleration of his heartbeat, his body becomes abnormally active. Promise me. Murong Ying solemnly looks at Li Fan and pleads. What? Survive. After Murong Ying finishes speaking, countless pink cherry blossom petals are already twining around Li Fan's body. These petals start to spin and in the blink of an eye, engulf Li Fan's body. Luo Shuowu, who stands at the side, is shocked. She did not expect that Murong Ying would actually make a move on her fiancé. But all martial arts are sacred. Li Fan did not ask for help, so she cannot interfere in the battle between the two. Luo Shuowu is very anxious, wishing that she can replace Li Fan to fight. Frost appears on the ground beside her. Luo Shuowu practices the 9 Heaven Mystic Ice Divine Technique, and because of this, she almost went berserk. Leave it to Brother Li, Night Rain Tower advised. This is a battle between the two of them. As he spoke, Li Fan's body erupted with a powerful burst of true qi, and the great god of war shot out. His hands tore apart the cherry blossoms around him, and he floated above Li Fan's head, glaring at Murong Ying. Li Fan did not say much. Today, the two of them were destined to fight. Murong Ing was stronger than him, but he would not back down. As the fiancé of the martial arts alliance master, the chief escort of Phenomenal Escort Agency, and the little overlord of Jianghu, he had to show the fighting spirit that a martial artist should have. The great war god put his hands on his waist and a ball of chi bead appeared in his palm, slowly growing bigger. Dragon Spitting Pearl. Li Fan threw a dragon spitting pearl at Murong Ing. The golden chi bead flew towards Murong Ing, but Murong Ing flicked her finger, and a cherry blossom pierced through the chi bead. The golden radiance exploded, and Li Fan's chi bead was destroyed just like that. However, Li Fan's attack was just a feint, and his body followed the chi bead and flew over. The great war god returned to Li Fan's body, and turned into a suit of golden armor. Li Fan slapped his palm towards Murong Ing, and Murong Ing thrust out 2 fingers. For some reason, even though they did not touch, Li Fan felt that Murong Ying's 2 fingers carried a powerful sword chi, and his palm was unable to block it. Li Fan forcefully retracted his palm, and slapped with his left palm. Murong Ing thrust out 2 more fingers, and Li Fan took another step back. This Murong Ying's sword finger was much more advanced than Jiang Feng's acupuncture point technique. These 2 fingers were comparable to a peerless treasured sword, and they were indestructible. At this moment, Murong Ing was like a hedgehog covered with needles, and Li Fan did not know where to start. This woman was too powerful. Since she gave birth to you, how could she give birth to Liang? However, Li Fan did not have the intention to retreat. Even if it was an iron plate, he could kick it 100 or 1,000 times, and it would still have a hole. Murong Ing used defense as offense, and while blocking Li Fan's attack, she was also constantly looking for weaknesses in Li Fan's body. "Stop playing, kill him!" Murong Ying's voice flew over. Murong Ying's body trembled slightly, while Wang Jian smiled. "Manor Lord Murong, it seems that you still have some strength left, you can actually speak freely." "Wang Jian, how long has it been since you became a grandmaster? How can you be mentioned in the same breath as me?" Murong had already raised her treasured sword, and with a wide swing, sword chi flew everywhere. Wang Jian, on the other hand, was circulating the little phaseless divine art. He pulled out a few weapons from the surrounding guests, and contended with Murong's treasured sword. This was the power of the little phaseless divine art. Not only could it use true chi to control other people's weapons, it could also use the time to push Murong's treasured sword askew. The control method was exquisite. The little phaseless divine art is too amazing for words. "Manor Lord Murong, you have to enjoy it." As Wang Jian spoke, he raised both his hands, and all the treasured swords on the guests' bodies flew out of their sheaths and floated above his head. There were about 200 to 300 swords, and although it was not comparable to the power of the 1,000 swords that Li Fan activated the Huashan sword mound, Li Fan's control over the 1,000 swords was also very simple, and he could only launch a rain of swords. Wang Jian was different. The 200 to 300 treasured swords seemed to have a life of their own, and constantly moved above his head, waiting to attack Murong's sword. Li Fan was a little envious. This Wang Jian's control over true chi was as good as his own hands and feet. Although Li Fan was not bad, he could not be compared to Wang Jian. At this moment, Murong Ing couldn't be bothered with Wang Jian anymore. The cherry blossom sword chi covered the sky and earth, and rushed towards Li Fan. Li Fan threw out the extraordinary sword, and with true chi control on it, he pointed it directly. The extraordinary sword was pointed at Murong Ing, and faced the large patch of cherry blossoms. True chi filled the treasured sword, causing it to emit a dazzling golden light, and it began to split the cherry blossoms in front of it. But the cherry blossom sword chi increased, and it was like a rain of cherry blossoms. It rushed towards Li Fan. All of Li Fan's true chi was gathered on a treasured sword. Li Fan suddenly had a very mysterious feeling. This extraordinary sword seemed to be responding to his power, and it trembled slightly. Li Fan's hands suddenly separated, and 7 sword shadows were separated by him. 7-star sword. But in the state of the Dragon Divine General, this power was not limited to just this. Li Fan felt that his sword technique was evolving. The seven-star sword is meaningless. Murong-ing looked at the seven sword shadows above Li Fan's head and shook her head. But Li Fan's hands continued to separate, and each of the seven swords split into seven. This time, there were 7 by 7, 49 swords. Li Fan divided them again, and each sword was divided into 7 swords. 343. But this was not the main point. Li Fan separated again, and directly split into more than 2,000 sword shadows. More than 2,000 was Li Fan's current limit. His true chi was only enough to create so many sword shadows. Looking at the densely packed treasured swords in the sky, Murong-ing couldn't help but frown. This is... Chapter 759. Even if there are so many sword shadows, they are ultimately just a drizzle. Murong-ing didn't mind at all and didn't take these sword shadows to heart. Myriad swords become one. Li Fan held onto the extraordinary sword with both hands and roared. The sword shadows that filled the skies suddenly flew over and fused into the extraordinary sword in Li Fan's hand. This black sword immediately emitted a dazzling golden light, as though it was filled with energy. Even Murong-ing couldn't help but frown when she saw the brilliance on the sword. What kind of technique was this? Myriad swords become one? With a wave of her hand, a large number of cherry blossoms continued to sweep towards Li Fan. However, Li Fan stood there without making any movements. The treasured sword seemed to have come to life as it swam around Li Fan, constantly mincing the surrounding cherry blossoms. Even Murong-ing couldn't help but be surprised at this moment. Was it possible for the treasured sword to have its own consciousness? The only explanation was that Li Fan's myriad swords become one allowed a large amount of true chi to fill the treasured sword. With his control of true chi, he only needed a simple thought to make his true chi move freely with the treasured sword. In order to verify her thoughts, Murong-ing released even more cherry blossoms and attacked Li Fan. Li Fan stood there as the black gold extraordinary sword blocked in front of him, releasing a dazzling golden light. This golden light was formed by true chi. When it struck the cherry blossoms, it dispersed the cherry blossoms. With this treasured sword, Li Fan seemed to have a guardian. He walked towards Murong-ing step by step as the extraordinary sword constantly attacked the cherry blossoms in front of him. Originally, the cherry blossoms were rushing over like an avalanche, but they were all stopped by this treasured sword. Li Fan walked step by step until he was in front of Murong-ing and looked at her face to face. "You are getting stronger," Murong-ing said, "although I know that we will have a battle a long time ago, it shouldn't be at this time." After Murong-ing finished speaking, the cherry blossoms rolled up and formed the shape of a cherry blossom sword. Under Murong-ing's command, the cherry blossom sword intertwined with Li Fan's sword, colliding with each other. At the same time, she arrived in front of Li Fan. She didn't rely on her sword chi, but only used her hands to attack Li Fan. Her 2 fingers were like a sword. Murong-ing's right hand pointed at Li Fan's eyes. Li Fan extended his hand, and a sword shadow flew out from the extraordinary sword and landed in his hand. This sword shadow was completely formed by vital energy. In Li Fan's hands, it was very sturdy. He raised his sword and blocked Murong-ing's sword finger. Clang! A crack appeared on the vital energy sword. It was almost pierced through by Murong-ing's sword finger. So powerful, Luo Shueu couldn't help but be surprised when she saw this. If it were him, how many moves would he be able to take from Murong-ing? Murong-ing has been holding back, Night Rain Tower said in a low voice. If she had used her full strength, Li Fan wouldn't have been able to take it with his current physical strength. Luo Shueu didn't say anything, but she sighed in her heart. She was also very diligent in her cultivation, but Murong-ing's talent was something that she couldn't be envious of. Sometimes, the world was very unfair. Li Fan held a sword shadow. He extended his hand, and another sword shadow fell into Li Fan's hand. He brandished 2 sword shadows and attacked Murong-ing at a rapid pace. Murong-ing only had 2 hands, so she was evenly matched with Li Fan. However, the great god of war popped out from behind Li Fan. He also held 2 sword shadows, and the 4 swords attacked crazily, creating a whirlwind-like rhythm. This was the first time that Li Fan maintained a state of synchronized attack with the great god of war. The more he fought, the more excited he became. Murong Ying didn't make a sound. Her 2 hands faced Li Fan's 4 swords, but she didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks constantly appeared, and the 2 of them were evenly matched. In order to fight with Li Fan, Murong Ying kept her strength at around 7 to 8 dragons. After Li Fan fought for a long time, Murong Ying suddenly placed her palm on his chest. Fire cloud palm. Bam! Flames burst out from Li Fan's back. It was as if there was a flame burning in his body, and then it suddenly exploded. Li Fan's body flew out and slid over 10 meters away. 2 sword shadows pierced into the ground and fell to the ground. He half knelt there and spat out a mouthful of blood. A large black hole was burned on the back of his clothes, and there was black smoke coming out from his back. This move had injured Li Fan's internal organs. Fire cloud palm. Luo Shuowu was shocked. What kind of martial art is this? Such a powerful palm. Night Rain Tower couldn't help but be surprised. Murong Ying compressed her true qi, and the friction with the air caused an explosion. Unbelievable. This move sounded simple, but it was really too difficult to execute. Cough. Li Fan spat out a mouthful of blood, and his vision turned black. Murong Ying's figure also swayed in front of him. At this moment, the true qi on Murong Ying's body seemed to be burning, and those pink cherry blossoms once again danced with a little spark. Li Fan, you still have a long way to go in martial arts. Murong Ying had already stepped into the level of a generation's grandmaster. Her hair danced along with her true qi, and her whole body was filled with heroic spirit. Li Fan, today is the day you die. Wei Jun saw the opportunity, and with a feint, he broke away from Chen Junhua's attack, and then thrusted his spear towards Li Fan. Humph! Murong Ying's eyes sharpened, and the cherry blossoms on her back flew up and instantly pierced through Wei Jun's body, causing him to be drenched in blood and fly out. Wei Jun fell to the ground, half dead. Only I can kill him. Murong Ying said coldly, no one else is allowed to touch a finger of him. Soft-hearted. Murong Bo was not happy. He suddenly shouted loudly, his voice was like thunder, causing Wang Zheng to take a step back. At the same time, Murong Bo leaped and somersaulted in the air, and his palm was covered in flames in midair. With just a glance, Murong Bo had already learned his daughter's fire cloud palm. Sure enough, he is the supreme martial artist. His palm brought out a flame in the air, and like a missile, it directly slapped towards Li Fan's forehead. Li Fan's vision was still black, and he only saw a red shadow jumping towards him. Li Fan half knelt on the ground, his fist pressed on the ground, and his fist emitted a black light. Then, the black true qi wrapped around Li Fan's body. He suddenly raised his head and punched Murong Bo's palm. Bang! Li Fan's body was sent flying, but at the same time, Murong Bo's body was also sent flying. Li Fan's body spun a few times, and finally smashed a house, bringing up black smoke. Murong Bo fell to the ground, and awkwardly retreated a few steps. Finally, he left a deep footprint on the ground, and then stabilized his body. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.